Alright, people, alright. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafa. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فسلام الله على القوم أهلا وسهلا بكم people. Alright, and an awesome episode inshallah of MindTrap with Mufti tonight. We have our esteemed guest whose profile picture I'm just about to bring before you right there. You can see Professor Edip Yuksel, a philosopher right there. The picture itself speaks volumes, people. You can see that somebody hailing from let's hear it from the professor himself from America, bringing him in. Assalamu alaikum, Professor. You
Walaikum
are live.
salam. I don't see myself. Where am I?
Right.
I thought I would be live. You put a dead picture of me. Okay.
The professor can only see me through Skype unless you've got another device. And through that device you can.
Okay, now I see it. I see.
Right.
Yes, it is a delayed one, but that's fine. Now I want to protest you, and I don't like to be introduced like a heavyweight boxing champion, esteemed, those kind of words, or like a religious cleargyman. I am just Edip. My first name is Edip. Don't call me even professor. I tell my students. Let me tell you. Set the rules.
Okay.
I tell my students, I say, who is the authority in this classroom the first day, something like that, after giving them some information about the syllabus stuff. And then everyone says, of course, you. Nope, it is you who are the authority. Each of you individually, independent, free human being, equal to me in this classroom. Therefore, call me my first name, Edip. I am one of you. I may be a little bit more experienced, a little bit more kind of having self-esteem, but that's all. We are in the same boat. We are all searching the truth together. Therefore, honestly, I don't like any of those ostentatious name before and after, especially clergymen of all sorts. They like to be called with long names. You see their names in 1 meter long. Abu Filan from this, and radiyallahu anhu, or qaddasallahu sirrahu al-aziz. And forget about those. We are all equal. We are all children of Adam, especially in the context of politics, philosophy, and religion, my dear brother. Which the name and the title of the person should be absolutely irrelevant. How injustice, the eye of the the statue is blind, means doesn't see the person, hear the cases, regardless of the person. The same about these subjects. Whoever said the title, the age of that person, or however the honorable person is not important. The words, the statements will be equal to each other.
Of course.
And whichever is better, we follow that one.
Just
correct?
For absolutely. But for our viewers who may not have come across Professor Edip, our brother Edip, inshallah, just for them, a bit of background. Reigning originally from Turkey, Kurdistan, I believe, but residing for many years in America, Arizona. The professor is a leading professor in philosophy, in Quran studies. He has some amazing theories. He's authored innumerable works, amongst them the Reformist's Manifesto, and also a Reformist translation of the Quran, of the entire Quran, in addition to several other works, all available on Professor Edip's website, 19.org, which is another amazing project which you've been working on. Is that correct?
Which one?
The 19, the mystique of the 19.
Okay.
In case they're thinking, what is 19? It's a number, people. It's a number.
Yeah. Okay. Most of your followers are from British, correct?
They are American as well, and global as well. Yeah.
Okay. My accent is funnier than you think, because it must be. English is chronologically is my fifth language, The first language, my mother tongue, is Kurdish. Then I learned Turkish, then Arabic, Persian, English. These
Wow.
are the 5 languages. But I cannot talk some of them well, like my mother tongue, Kurdish. I understand more, but I cannot talk much. And also Arabic, I can read, write, understand well, better than 99% of Arabs, maybe 99 point some percent, but I cannot talk much because I haven't practiced. And that is the language part. As far as my work, I have written most of my books in Turkish until age 30, but later I started writing in English. Translation of the Quran. I have translated the Quran into 2 languages, Turkish and English. In fact, there are many applications, phone applications on my translations, but they are kind of not really well done. There are recently 2 of them, the Turkish and English one you can see here. Let's see whether I can show you. The English one, you can download it. Right now, the Android version is available at Google Play. The iPhone not available yet. It is hexagon, colorful hexagon, you see, and the name is Quran with code 19, okay? I don't know whether you saw it or not.
Yeah.
It has some functions, we are keep adding it. I didn't do well because you didn't see the cover of it. Let me, one more time,
Sure.
have
Go
patience
for it.
with me,
Of
please.
course. No, most
And
welcome.
first I want to show here, it is delayed, therefore I don't know how it shows.
No, it does show. I can see it.
Okay,
Yeah.
here it is. I push it. Let's see whether it is
That's it.
showing right now.
Quran. Yes, I saw that, and I'll just show them as well your
Okay,
website. I'll just bring that up for the people here that they can see that as well. Now,
okay. It randomly opened, let's say, chapter 40. In the name of God, the gracious, the compassionate. And the other books I have written is 19, God's signature in nature and scripture, and running like zebras, extensive debate on that subject, and also warmongers. Translated to English, 19 questions for atheists. The 10 questions were translated into English. We needed to rush it for some reason. And I don't make money from my books on religion by the way, let me tell you again, in case you think I'm putting my books for money. No, for 30 plus years, since I dedicated myself to God alone, 1st of July 1986, I don't make a penny on my books on religion or my talk on religion, nothing, just the other way around. I use my pocket money, the money I earned from other means. I am a lawyer. Sometimes I give advice to law firms, lawyers, and also I teach philosophy and logic classes for 20 years part time. And meanwhile, I have also beltways.org. If you look at it, I have a technology. I am patenting and keep patenting right now. I got some patents, and there are some patent pending. It is a mass transportation, the best mass transportation in the cities. Beltways.org. If you have people, right now we are looking for investors for the working prototype, about 120 meters we want to put somewhere. It accelerates the walking way. We see walkways in airports. It is fantastic, great promise in mass transportation. Therefore, I am not only involved in religion, in philosophy, and in law, and in politics. I'm also involved in science and technology. I continuously educate myself about those topics. And also, currently, if you want to know about the three projects I'm doing, one is one is this project, Beltways, or as a Brainbow uh, corporation, and also I am writing a documentary, 10 series. We are going to propose to Netflix on 19 prophecies. 19 prophecies.
Wow.
And I have written a synopsis of it, about 20-page synopsis on 10 series. And also another one right now I'm involved with putting together a draft constitution for Turkey, a peace constitution. In the past, I have written articles on constitution, legal articles, and symposiums at universities, University of Arizona, Princeton University, and we put together conferences at Oxford University, 2 conferences as critical thinker for Islamic reform. And I also have written together with my friend, whose name is Layth Al-Shayban from Saudi Arabia, the Peacemaker Constitution. That time we did it for Tunisian group who were kind of, unfortunately, their hopes
They were working on the
crushed.
constitution at the time.
Yeah, it is. You can see it, the Peacemakers Constitution at 19.org.
You know,
And
all your
yes,
books, they are available, all what you've written for download on 19.org, ain't they?
not all of them there, but you can see it on internet everywhere, like academia and many other
Yeah.
places. But I would like to organize all of them somewhere, all be downloadable. Right now, my 19.org is revamped,
Okay.
and I will put almost all of them there, whichever
But
is
yeah,
available for
you've
free.
I see, I see. But you've definitely got the a bit about each one on your website on
Yeah.
19.org. I can see it there. So,
Okay.
yep. Okay, so Professor, right. So this whole your one of your groundbreaking works, a reformist translation of the Quran. Right. First of all, is this something you feel that there is first and foremost a strong need for this, and secondly, tell us a bit about this project.
Well, I did work with Dr. Rashad Khalifa in 1989 to 1990 until he was assassinated.
Yeah, he was
And
a mentor to you.
yeah, he was a mentor, and we were friends too. And he acted like a father figure. He helped me out, and he was the one really caused me to give up from Sunni religion, which I bested pretty much. And my father was the top clergyman in Turkey, and I was close friends with today's Turkish President Erdogan, or Davutoğlu, the former prime minister, and many of the
Oh,
right now
you were
movers. And
close friends with Erdogan.
of
Okay.
course, we were from both neighborhood. We were friends from the school. We graduated from the same school, high school, and also in the party we were together. I was above him in rank. In fact, first time when he was got arrested, he followed one of my basically rallies, and he was arrested because of that. But at that time we had differences. He was mostly involved with merchants. He was collecting money, organizing house meetings for the party. That time I was an activist on the streets and talking in the buses and theaters to people, promoting Iranian-like Islamic revolution in Turkey. And my brother got killed that time by nationalists, racists in
I see.
Turkey.
Inna
We call them
lillahi.
fascists.
Yes.
And he's a legend among Islamists in Turkey. His name Edip Yuksel. If you put it, you will see uh, hundreds of thousands of pages on him. But my father was very well-known scholar, top scholar in Turkey. Therefore, I come from that family. when I rejected Sunni religion. I was best-selling author in Turkey. And there is some noise going on. What's going on, my dear friend?
Is that? I think that's coming on
Let's pass this
from your
one.
side.
Okay,
Okay.
I indulge so much. Let's come to the topic, Quran. When I look at I said I work with Rashad Khalifa, and together he was doing revising his own translation, and I started doing the Turkish translation in 1989. We were next to each other in the same masjid, Tucson, from morning until Isha, until night. And we spent 7 days a week together, and we were discussing each other's translation and giving feedback or debating on how the more accurate one should be. Therefore, though I learned a lot from him, at the same time I followed what I myself see it is important not to follow anyone blindly, and he appreciated that one. He also learned from me at the same time. We were learning together. But afterwards, years later, I found out there were some errors in our translations, or when we first, with time I'm learning, because the Sunni religion and culture has so much effect on us without even knowing. We blindly kind of follow some things we understand differently,
You know,
and it
when
takes
you
some time.
just for the viewers, when you say the Sunni religion, you broke away from the Sunni religion now because the Sunni thing is so vast. What is the key? The key feature is about Hadith. Is this what it is, or do you mean something else?
Well, Sunni religion means basically it starts from La ilaha illallah, the kalima tawheed or shahada. The distortion started with that. They added Muhammad's name into it.
Okay.
According to the Quran, according to Muhammad, it was La ilaha illallah, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and period. Nothing. Muhammad, Isa, Musa was not added to the name. The messengers did not come to remove the previous messenger's name next to God. And Isa did not come saying, hey, people, it is no more La ilaha, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Musa Rasulullah. It is no more Musa's name. I am going to put down Musa's name and I am going to put my name in the sign. Now the name of the story is God plus Isa. And Muhammad didn't come saying, well, Isa's name next to God, no more, put my name next to God. They didn't compete with each other. They didn't pull each other. In fact, they said, we are all the same. The Quran says, do not make distinction among messengers. They are all humans like you. Do not put them in competition. Therefore, even the name Islam is changed, distorted. Islam, today when we say it as if it is a brand name, it is in capital letter we write. No, it is one of the major problem with this thing. It is named, it is made as if it is a new thing. No, according to the Quran, the previous, all the messengers of God, all the monotheists, they were Muslims, they were peacemakers.
Yeah.
Islam means peacemaking. Therefore,
Okay.
when someone asks your religion, don't say Islam in Arabic. You are not speaking Arabic. If you speak in Arabic, say Islam means peacemaking. In English, peacemaking. In Turkish, I am barışçı. In Kurdish, aşiti, whatever. Anyway,
So okay.
therefore, when I saw errors in translation, Rashad's translation, in my early translation, I decided to work on it. And with time, I thought that it's very important. There were some very major errors. And also in the footnotes,
When you say
I-
you saw errors, Professor, you mean
Yeah.
errors by people in general, or you saw some? Were they specific people, or you're saying everywhere these errors were widespread?
well, in Rashad's translation is pretty accurate. It is not, you cannot compare it with the Sunni translations. Therefore, Rashad, when tried to understand the Quran based on the Quran alone, had opened the understanding of the Quran. Of course, it takes the time because our mind, the broadcasting of the Quran is very clear, but our radio, it is not tuned well, or in the background there are some, or the battery is weak, it is because of us. It takes some time to understand the verses clearly. Like the early Muslims, it took them some time. The same with us. And after Rashad, when I look at it, there were also some errors in our translation. And I decided to make it, of course, the Sunni or Shiite translations are filled with major errors. They are not mistakes, accidental mistakes, minor mistakes. They are deliberate distortion. They wanted to distort the message of the Quran, turn it to a book of idol worship and ignorance. It is absolutely the Muslim, so-called Muslim world betrayed the Quran through Hadith and Sunnah. Fabrication of Hadith and Sunnah is major. Yes, go ahead.
Professor, just to what audience may be thinking, these are some harsh words here, that they betrayed the Quran. Do you really feel that they betrayed the Quran with, or is this something a gradual institutionalization process, or is it a select few that did some propaganda and got it widespread? I mean, what do you? Because people listening to this may think, "Whoa, that's a bit of a loaded term." That
No,
the
it is
Muslims
not.
betrayed.
It is conspiracy against Quran, Hadith and Sunnah. It is absolutely conspiracy against Quran, deliberately done by the enemies of the Islam Quran. And those people, you may study history, you may find them maybe Abu Sufyan or Umayyads or some tribes, but they were not happy with how Islam eliminated the days of ignorance. They were top, and they were happy with their tribes, and they could do whatever they want. But Islam brought egalitarian society, rights for women, freedoms, and also sharing the wealth with other people. All these things bother them. But with the accessing to, how do you say, with the opening of Mecca,
Yeah.
and Mecca was not conquered by sword. Absolutely conquering by sword. The word futuhat or fatah is also, the concept is entirely distorted. According to the Quran, the fatah was opening. It was opening in peace, because they lost the battle of the mind, the truth. And the people embrace Islam because of its egalitarian and peaceful message, because of this based on reasoning and searching the truth. And therefore, after that, the whole thing changed in the Arabia.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No,
You want to
so
say something?
no, I feel okay. So from the Prophet's lifetime, moving on this tradition, you feel quite early on, people, they were working to distort the overall narrative and the overall message. For distort it for who? Distort it for the public. Distort it for them. This is. But doesn't this all sound a bit conspiratorial, a bit hyper conspiracy theory?
Listen, it is easy for you guys, for Sunnis and Shiites, to believe that Christians distorted the teaching of Jesus, or Jewish people did it.
That's true.
It is easy for us to see the problem with Christianity, the idol worship, the silly stuff. But we don't see ours, because we are born into that nonsense. When you are born into nonsense, when the nonsense is peddled to you since childhood as a holy nonsense, as holy truth, and then we become blind to our problems. And it is absolutely, when you look at Hadith, there are all motives behind why those Hadiths was fabricated. First of all, let me tell you as information, Bukhari is the holiest Hadith book, and the most so-called authentic Hadith book in Sunni religion. And Bukhari was compiled, was supposedly written in 230 years after Prophet Muhammad. In fact, we don't have any archaeological evidence for that either. But assume that it is true, there's 230 years. Now, these are the books, if you look at Hadith, for example, Hadith about Mahdi, it is all political propaganda.
I 100% agree with you on this thing, with the.
But not only that, let me tell you something. Let's say Hadith is about dog. That dog is kill the black dogs. If you check it, you will find that the person who fabricated the Hadith was bitten or was kind of scared by black dogs. This is the way they justify whatever their culture or their personal whims is through hadith. Even wanted the guy promote his date from his a town called Ajwa. He made up hadith way to promote political ideas, your culture, even your religion. A lot of Jewish people, Christians, they supposedly, on the guise of being Muslim, they fabricated hadith, they imported their Christian or Jewish culture and religious dogmas into, circumcision, for example, like rosary, like many other, from small to big. It is all has reason. Or this sultan is oppressive, want to kill people after, let's say, having them commit massacre. Well, here it is. There are people who will make a hadith to justify his massacre and say Beni Qurayza. And Beni Qurayza is a big lie just in order to justify their own massacres. According to Quran, what is called in captives in war, you cannot kill them, you cannot touch them, you cannot try them even, because it is war, different circumstances. You keep them, either the end of the war you release them for free, or during the wartime you exchange them. You cannot kill them. But according to Beni Qurayza massacre, Muhammad captured basically the Jewish people. They came down from their castle, about 600 of them or 800 of them, basically massacre all of them. And this is what to justify the kings, Umayyad or Abbasid and later Ottoman kings, that okay, Muhammad did this, he killed people, we can kill the same way. Or Muhammad killed a woman who's criticizing him because supposedly she insulted Muhammad. Yes, according to the Quran, they can insult. There is no really even a punishment for insult. Someone insult your religion, your God, according to chapter 4, verse 140, you just say peace, you leave if they are making mockery, and then you go back again, you continue discussing if they are not making mockery. That's it. But
I agree with you on many of these things that you've cited, Professor. But I'm curious that would you feel that 100% of hadith are fabricated, or do you feel it's that not 100%, but it's just that because we can't distinguish, therefore we're not going to get engaged with this resource? Is this, which one of the two camps do you just feel that hadith is just like an evil enterprise which altogether it has 0% validity to it, or do you?
Good question. I don't claim that all evil. No. In fact, in order to evil Satan to fool people, the Quran says, يَلْبِسُونَ الْحَقَّ بِالْبَاطِلِ, to mix the truth with the falsehood. This is what does. A lot of candies, inside the candy put the poison. There are some good words, statements, a lot of good statements in hadith books. We cannot never be sure whether Muhammad said it or not, but we can say some of these perhaps Muhammad said it because they are nice words. Be nice to your neighbor, smile to your neighbor, good thing. There is nothing wrong with that. But you can find these statements in Chinese proverb too. In many fiction books, you can find many statements, good statements, even much better than hadith. Therefore, first of all, whether the words of Muhammad, even we hear today, whether it can be the source of our system, Islam, no. The Quran says no. The Quran says no, and Muhammad believed in the Quran. Muhammad never claimed that his own words is a source of Sharia or system, a source of deen, because mukhlisina lahu deen. We are asked, Muhammad also asked, to follow, to dedicate the system only to God alone. Therefore, the soul, inil hukmu illa lillah.
I mean, that is true. You get. Yeah.
ها.
I was
أم
going
لهم شركاء شرعوا لهم من الدين ما لا يأذن به الله. Which verse is this? It is 42, chapter 42, verse 21. And it rejects any other besides God to be the source of Sharia laws. And therefore, Muhammad was only messenger. As a messenger, he was only limited his job as a messenger to deliver the message. وَمَا عَلَى رَسُولِ. The messenger has no duty illa except al-balagh, delivering the message, which the Quran says, chapter 6, verse 19, that is the Quran, or chapter 25, verse 30. Yes, go ahead.
No, because I was going to say that yes, many academics today, Fred Donner amongst them, who has a book as well saying this very same thing, that it seems that in the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had a movement which is like he's saying that yes, it's Islam is it, but Islam is slightly an institutionalization version of it. That if anything, you would call that early movement the believers movement, and and his book Muhammad amongst the believers. Now this is what he's arguing, that they found certain documents which will have things like La ilaha illallah, but they won't mention the Prophet's name with it like that. Obviously they do accept the Prophet, but it's more it seems that this is more just in line with the early Abrahamic traditions just coming along. And some early Christians, I believe John of Damascus also describing Muslims as a fringe Christian faction. He says that these seem to be a strange type of Christians. So there is some of this kind of work which resonates with what you're saying. Yeah.
Can you let's a little bit indulge on this subject? It's very important. Edin, according to the Quran, Muhammad has several roles. He was also a leader, a prophet, a living prophet, leader of believers. Therefore, when they had major issues, they came to him. He would be the judging on them. They had to accept his judgment.
Yeah.
And therefore, the verses is about a live Prophet Muhammad listening live to the people and making judgment. You were not supposed to, after his death, you cannot have Muhammad listening to your sides. Therefore, it's absolutely, that was limited with his lifetime as a leader.
But
he was also as a husband.
But do you not feel that as the Prophet was living amongst the believers, tending to their daily affairs, tending to things, is it not very reasonable and rational that he was passing judgments on things? People were asking him, can you judge between us on this matter? Can you decide this?
Of course.
So would these rulings not be conveyed?
No, this ruling is their time, space, place specific. It is geography, person specific. Right now we are live. We don't consult a dead person to listen to us and to listen to the detailed issues between people. Therefore, absolutely it is wrong. When now we have people, elected people or judges will listen to us. We should have them, and then we follow their judgment. We should have people, live people, to listen to live events. By this way, we are basically we are dynamics. We are living. The time changes, the conditions changes. By making Prophet Muhammad as God, because we say we cannot be dying. We keep him alive as if he knows the future, he knows everything, he knows us, he knows our troubles, he knows our issues. No, it is really betrayal of the truth. It is perceiving Muhammad as God. No, the Quran says, وَإِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتٌ. You will die and they will be dying too. And therefore, Muhammad's role, several roles. He was husband, but why we say Quran talks about Muhammad's little bit private life? Because give us an example. There will be leaders after Muhammad, about public personalities. We need to be respectful about their privacies. It gives us example about how we should treat our leaders and how should they treat us. And these are the things. For example, the Quran says Muhammad had mubayah with women. Very interesting. Mubayah, it is first time women voting, in fact, as far as I know. Muhammad, women voted Muhammad. It's not bay'ah, but Sunnis and Shiites turn it to bay'ah. One way, the below people given promise to follow the orders of the rulers. No, it is not there. It is mubay'ah, mufa'ala. It is two-way, two direction. Muhammad gave promise to be just, to be truthful, not to steal from public things. He gave promise to them, and they gave promise to Muhammad.
So
it
just to be
yes.
clear for people, the distinction you're drawing between, I think it's a very interesting point, drawing a distinction between mubay'ah and bay'ah as it came to be understood in the institutionalized version, where certain people, they pledge an allegiance to an authority. Here, the Prophet, it is a sense of a reciprocal action that the Prophet, it's give and take. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Absolutely. Here is one important verse. وَلَا يَعْصِينَكَ فِي مَعْرُوفٍ. It is about leader Muhammad. وَلَا يَعْصِينَكَ. They should not rebel against you. فِي مَعْرُوفٍ. In the things that is known that you are right. It is ma'ruf means the things that is known. By this condition, leave open means they could rebel against you if you have something not ma'ruf, not acceptable. Therefore, it is very obvious Muhammad was not a tyrant. He had to consult. The Quran says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Muhammad was elected by people, and there was two-way. It is a social contract between people, including women, voted for Muhammad. And then in that social contract, there were Jewish people did not accept Muhammad's prophethood in Medina, and the Christians, they did not accept him to be prophet. The mushriks there, the pagans there, they did not accept him to be prophet of God, but they accept him as a leader, a judge leader. They expect him to be judge leader. That's it. But that leadership left with the Prophet Muhammad's death. He's no more our leader. He's dead. Put in your mind, he's not God. And Muhammad's messengership is finished and says, قُلْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ هَذَا الْكِتَابُ لِأُنذِرَ بِكُمْ وَمَنْ بَلَغَ. Chapter 6, verse 19. Say, this book is given to me to deliver to you and those who will be receiving. That is. And now, when we receive the Quran, he's done his messengership. Therefore, obeying God and messenger doesn't mean obeying God and Bukhari, obeying God, this Abu, this Ibn. No,
you see, yes. I agree with you on the idolization of Bukhari and making Islam Bukhari centric. And in fact, I have a whole thing dedicated called Bukhari Gate, and the whole thing of the problems with Sahih Bukhari. But on this note, are you, just to be clear, are you stating that we have the Quran, we have Hasbuna Kitabullah, but we can still do ijtihad with it with day-to-day issues? So we use the Quran and take guidance. If you are arguing that, then is this concept or tool of ijtihad not what we learnt from the Prophet himself?
No, it is the Quran says. The Quran, the verses of the Quran says, بَيَانًا لِلنَّاسِ. This is for people. لَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We made the Quran easy to take advice from, to learn from. Is we made it easy, and repeats this 4 times. Kitab Mubin says it is obvious. You say no, it is not obvious. We say, God, you are telling us wrong. It is difficult to understand. When you believe it is, when you reject the verses of the Quran, clear verses of the Quran becomes invisible to you. You will not be able to understand the Quran. You will not have access to the Quran because your intention is bad. You think that it is not understandable. Absolutely, you handicap yourself mentally and psychologically. You will never be able to understand the Quran. And I have tests in my classroom sometimes to teach students. If you mentally say this is difficult, it becomes difficult, sometimes impossible. The simplest task that elementary schools can solve the problem. My students, in college students, they are not, because I pass them through certain steps and then they think the next question is more difficult than previous one. In
Absolutely.
fact, it is very small. If you think it is difficult to walk, you won't be able to walk. And
Exactly.
therefore,
In fact,
we
and
are,
there's a famous quote that, you know, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way, you're probably right.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially the Quran is a miraculous book, divine book. Some people look at it as a book is kind of disorganized, full of some hell and this and simple things. If you look at the Quran, you can see two things. One is an incredible, mathematically designed, full of scientific information, full of layers of information, the meaning of the words. I have given many examples in 19 questions for atheists about the language of the Quran. But at the same time, if you don't want to see it, absolutely you will not see it. You will see every bad thing there. You will not see the God's name that is Rahman and Rahim repeated, or the derivatives of Rahmah most in the Quran, most than any other word. But you will see few hell and stuff. You will say, well, there is no mercy in this book. If you want to see it, you will ignore the rest. You will see what you want. But
Sure.
if you objectively look at it, the Quran is a very incredible, wonderful book.
I mean,
But
absolutely. I mean,
uh,
no Muslim is going to deny that, Professor. But on this hadith thing, a final question on this thing, not to pester you on it, but just because our viewers may be wondering, do you see, if you are saying that we discount all hadith based on the fact that, and this is what I want to clarify, is it that we are saying 0%, these are not true? And even though there may be some nice things, like you said, like smile to your neighbor, but this is general human common sense that people say things like this, Chinese proverbs, like you said, say. Or is it that you are saying, no, there may be some real teachings from the Prophet here, but because we can't distinguish today,
no, no, no.
therefore we're suspicious? No, you're
First
not.
of all,
Because there are,
there.
would you not say there are historical hadith which, in light of history, we now know that must have occurred? Like, so for example, stories to do with, let's say, certain contemporary rulers, and the Prophet speaking around this time. Now we know through historical kind of evidence these rulers did exist, and certain, let's say, the Khusra of Persia, Sassanid Empire, he died at a certain time. The Prophet said something. His daughter had actually become the next ruler. Or you've got Heraclius, for example, the Prophet's letter to Heraclius. Now there are other examples as well, many examples where we can say, well, actually, you know what, these do seem to denote what was, some historical accuracy. Would you not agree?
Listen, the history, you may look at it as a historical piece full of lies and distortions, and there will be some truth in it, of course. If you are a historian, critically, you can review it, you can check, you can come up with some ideas, but it is Zen. It is ultimately, it is not 100% proof that it is exactly from Prophet Muhammad. Even if it is, let's say, even if we know that Prophet Muhammad today talked, that word is not my religion, and he would never claim such, because he believed the Quran. He believed that the Quran is alone is sufficient to guide. The Quran is mubin, is mufassal. The source of system is God alone, not him. His job was only to deliver the Quran, not to add, not to change, not to distract, subtract, not to do nasakh. But these hadiths, basically, they give Prophet Muhammad the power to be God besides God. He never claimed such it. It is, it is basically Muhammad in the day of judgment will reject these people who think they respect, they love Muhammad. How he will reject? وقال الرسول يا ربي إن قوم اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. Oh my Lord, the Rasul will say, my Lord, my people have deserted the Quran. It doesn't say Quran plus my hadith, my sunnah stuff. Because these people deserted the Quran. They made Muhammad against the Quran. Their Muhammad is not Prophet Muhammad. Their Muhammad is like a Greek god mixed. It is with many faces, with multiple personalities. One of them is more merciful than God in the so-called Mi'raj, Hadith Mi'raj. He goes up in the sixth sky, it's called sixth heaven, and debate with God, negotiate about the number of prayers, but gets advice from the seventh heaven, correct?
Seventh, yes.
In the sixth heaven is Moses waiting, and Moses is the advisor to Prophet Muhammad. And look at this, whoever made this up. Muhammad gets down from the seventh heaven down. Moses asks him, what happened? He says, well, I got 50 prayers a day, but it's not 50 units. It is 50 prayers a day. Means every 28 minutes, in 24 hours, day and night, every 28 minutes is one another prayer. They didn't have watch like us. How they could even calculate 28 minutes? Maybe what Prophet Muhammad says, according to that hadith, God burdened us beyond our capacity. But the Quran says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. In this part of this hadith, this verse is rejected. Says, no, God really gave us something that we cannot make it. And Muhammad cannot think, cannot calculate somehow, according to this hadith. His brain is not smart enough, below IQ level is low, hasha. And then Moses says, oh, Muhammad, your people cannot do. Oh, are you right, Moses? Oh, thank you for telling me. I'm going up. Moses tell him, go up, negotiate with God. And goes up and then comes down. Moses says, what happened? Now it is 40 prayers a day, Muhammad says. Moses says, that one is even too much, too many. Yeah. Go up and negotiate. Muhammad follow Moses' advice, instruction, like a what is union leader, but getting advice from Moses, up and down, negotiate with God, who is a boss, merciless boss, he wants to give us a lot of chore. Yeah. And therefore, and comes down with 5. Moses says, even this one is too much. Muhammad says, I am embarrassed now negotiating with God. In one way, Muhammad is more merciful than God, but at the other hand, Muhammad is chopping head, arms, and legs of people, gouging their eyes with hot nail in the hadith of Urayna and
Urayna. The Urayna.
Or put a woman on 2 horses and split into 2 pieces, or send a Syria to kill a poor.
That one I haven't heard of, the horse one.
Therefore, Muhammad in one hand is merciful, on the other hand is a psychopath. In one day he is a noble, very righteous person, on the other hand he's a sexual maniac, marries a girl who is 6 or 9 years old while he's 54 years old. Is a do you understand?
All of these things you're saying, I 100% agree with all these kind of concepts that you're saying about. Look at like the hadith of Mi'raj, how it distorts how it's just absurd, and how the concept that the Prophet married a child, or how he's tortured the people of Urayna, and all of these I've actually personally spoken about in the past, dismissed them as false narrations, and I agree with you on all of these matters. I suppose the distinction is but I say that there is something called a living tradition which was passed down, and it was captured within things like fiqh, and some hadith have captured it as well. But every time we read a hadith, I follow the understanding that it should be measured against the 3, that lam yubayin al-ma'qul wa lam yukhalif al-manqul wa lam yunaqid al-usul, and then we can accept it if it doesn't go against reason or the Quran.
My brother, please. This is a poisonous pile of garbage. There are some, you see some beans there, some piece of bread there, and some vegetables there. You see, well, this is not rotten, and this meat is not smelly, stinky. I'm going to choose. That is poisonous. Stop whirling around this garbage like a fly. You will not get something truth. The Quran says, "Zan inna zanna la yuni min al-haqq shay'an." Here is a question for you. The Quran says, if someone falsely accuses someone of adultery, and it is shown that it is false witness testimony, what the Quran says about that person, about that witness?
That, I mean, it would either be, if a person if they do qadf, if they accuse chaste women of something, they can't provide witnesses, they are punished for that.
They are punished and never accept any more testimony from them. Do you
Yeah.
remember?
ولا تقبل
Okay.
ولا تقبل لهم
Mashallah.
شهادة.
Now, this guy, this Bukhari guy or Abu Huraira guy, whoever they are, I don't care. But it is when we see it is about the books, about the narrations from them. We see them not only one false accusation to God and Muhammad, we see major lies, contradictions. And obvious, no one except, for example, they have even fabricated the verse, الشيخ والشيخة إذا زنيا فارجموهما البتة, and they couldn't insert to the Quran. And they say, well, it was written on the Quran, it was written on a letter, it was under Aisha's bed, and then after Prophet Muhammad, a hungry goat ate it, and therefore now it is in Hadith books, holy
Yeah,
Hadith.
It's
And
in,
then,
I think it's in Ibn Majah, is it? I think, yeah.
yeah, but not only Ibn Majah, the others also refer to, like Umar says, if people did not say Umar is adding to the Quran, I would add these Shaykh wa Shaykhata, these ayatul rajm in the Quran.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is in other books also, it is justified. Now, imagine they made up even a verse and they couldn't insert it after Prophet Muhammad. Look at the problems. And then after Prophet Muhammad, a hungry goat eat it, and it is mansukh from Quran. It is taken out of the Quran, the Mus'haf, but it is still valid, and they killed people. Many thousands of people were killed in barbaric way because of this. Now, this guy, falsely accused guy, that cost people's life, that turned people's women's life to miserable life, that made dogs will be killed, and make people not benefiting from music. Even they made music haram, even playing chess haram. Basically, they made up so many lies. They turned people, millions of people life into hell. And you still say, well, I know these are lies, but we still go in those books. We'll find our religion. We'll try to understand Quran according to these liars, these big liars. But the Quran says, falsely accusing one person will hurt that person alone. Even that one, you'd never listen to their testimony again. You never trust the testimony of that person who lied once. But this one is making big lies, and for generations and generations, cross geography all around the world, turn people's life into hell, made people get killed. And how in the world you give them credibility? You say Quran plus Bukhari, who is the enemy of God, enemy of Prophet Muhammad. How you go still around like a fly, try to find some protein in that garbage? No, you will find, listen, let me challenge you, those people who follow Hadith. You say Hadith explains the Quran. So far I challenge them, find me a Hadith explain the Quran. Not a single Hadith. Not a single Hadith that explains the Quran. Just the other way around. Hadith distorts the Quran. Let me tell you, there are 29 chapters starts with the letters.
Okay.
If something needs explanation, goodness sake.
You mean like the huruf al-muqatta'at, like alif, lam, ra, these kind of things?
Yeah, okay. Alif, lam, mim, kaf, ha, ya, ain, sad, ha, mim. Okay, 29 chapters start with this, and 19 chapters have independent verse. These letters are independent verse. Where is Hadith explaining the Quran? This is the most curious that we are. If Hadith explained it, let it explain this one. Once I ask people, I challenge them, I say, bring me one.
Yes, but why do we feel that is the ultimate litmus test to prove the validity of Hadith? Because even the Quran doesn't explain that.
Quran explains it.
Okay. Oh, you feel it's explained. Okay, that's it.
We have 3 meanings of it. 3 meanings. Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. What out of curiosity, what are these the explanations?
I will come to that.
Okay, sure. We can come back to that later.
Don't forget. Write it down somewhere.
Sure. I got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Here I want to challenge my brothers and sisters who follow the Hadith and Yuftara. Hadith and Yuftara. In the Quran, interestingly, it's miraculously, the word Hadith, whenever is used other than the Quran, is almost always it is negative.
It is negative. Yeah.
For the Quran is used ahsan al hadith, the best
Yeah.
hadith for
Yeah.
the Quran. For the other, hadithan yuftara, made up, fabricated hadith. In another place, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Which hadith besides God and his signs, after God and his signs, they will believe, they will trust. And the word hadith is in negative. In fact, there are two the word hadith is used in connection with Prophet Muhammad's words. Very interesting. Prophetically, they are in negative way. In one of them, the listening of that hadith is prohibited. People are criticized for listening to those because they were private. In other one, it is the distribution of it is criticized. Well, in order the narration of hadith happen, one Ibn Falan must hear, Abu Falan must relate to another person. These two things prophetically is criticized in the Quran. And the word sunnah too. According to the Quran, sunnah means law, and the only valid law is sunnatullah, sunnatullah, sunnatullah. وَلَن تَجِدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. The sunnah. Nowhere in the Quran the sunnah used is for sunnati Muhammad. Nowhere.
No, it doesn't.
But they don't care.
That is true. That's
because
a term that comes about much later on. Yeah.
the fabricator of hadith and sunnah, they were ignorant of the Quran, or they were the enemy of the Quran. They went exactly directly diametrically against the Quran verses, very clear verses.
But I mean, there's things. There's things like rulings which come from in hadith, and you can understand why people may manipulate rulings, and they may manipulate some events, like you said, for political prowess or usage. But there are so many other things as well, like just descriptions, things like the fact that the Prophet lived in Mecca. The fact that he grew up in Mecca, the fact that these things all come to us through these descriptions, the fact that he, this thing of the migration, the fact of I know you can get some inferences of the migration from the Quran, but Medina or anything, all of this, Yathrib, for example, the Prophet.
It is not needed, my brother. These are not needed for our salvation.
No,
these you may like it as a historian. Of course, as a historian, you will critically look at it. You will find a lot of lies and distortions, a lot of exaggerations, and some truths to archaeological evidences, of course. I also look at hadith about the language that used when this hadith was fabricated, how the transformation of, for example, al-shaykh wa shaykhatu, it shows that whoever fabricated these hadiths attribute to God has different dialect than the Quran, because the Quran, according to the Quran, the word shaykh means the old person. But according to these hadiths, it meant the married person, not the old person. For example, the language change. Therefore, you may get about the information about the culture of the people who fabricated the hadiths, or the political problems. For example, study of Mahdi hadith, it shows where this hadith was fabricated. It is description of the king or the governor of that place. Hadith Mahdi comes in Yemen, in Basra, Kufa, Mecca, correct, and Sham, Damascus, in all these places, because those fabricated during the time by people who lived in those area.
Sure.
Okay.
I was going to say, you mentioned something there just a little while back about naskh, this whole concept of naskh. And this is, once again, an area of great interest for you, that there was no such thing as naskh, because we're just looking at the Quran from your perspective. We're just focusing on the Quran. Does the Quran allow a concept of abrogation? Does it allow it to abrogate itself, for example? You're very vocal on this position. You feel that this is absolutely made up, this concept.
Yeah, I'm taking some notes. I don't want to forget. Let's say 3 hadith. Okay. Naskh, of course, it is one of the major fabrication, conspiracy, and hostility against the Quran. The Quran now may be the most read book, but the least understood and the most betrayed book. And they have, by distorting the meaning of some verses, and they created the idea of nasikh. By this way, they claim there are contradictions in the Quran, while the Quran chapter 4, verse 82 says, وَإِنْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Yeah, if it was from other than God, they would find many contradictions in the book. They say, yes, there are many contradictions. Of course, they say, and here it is, this verse is contradicting this one. Therefore, this came after this one. Asbab nuzul is another way of distorting the Quran.
And they use the verse that ma nansakh min ayatin aw nunsiha na'ti bi khayrin
I'm
minha
coming
aw
to
mithliha.
that.
Yes, of
And
course.
then they say, therefore, this one after one, this contradicts that one, therefore is mansukh. First of all, they don't understand the verse of the Quran because they say the Quran is difficult. The Quran, they don't believe God's words. Therefore, between them and the Quran, there will be hijab. And the Quran says, لا يمسه إلا المطهرون. Only clean people, their mind clean, they understand. If their mind polluted with lies, with hadith, with zan, with dogmas, of course you will not be understanding the Quran. And therefore they don't understand the verses of the Quran. They say, well, these contradict the other because they don't understand. And they say, well, one of them is making the other, abrogating the other. Not only that, they went even further. They say hadith, sahih hadith, if contradicts the verses of the Quran, sahih hadith, nasikh, do abrogate, means nullify the verses of the Quran. Do you know that this is in
Yeah,
Hanafi?
I mean they do. Yeah, but the Hanafiya make a distinction and say they say no, but the rest of them do accept it much more, saying a sunnah tansakhul Quran, as Shafi'i writes that it does.
Shafi'i was the enemy of Quran. He was the first promoter. Of course, he was the enemy of Quran. Yeah, he was the enemy of Abu Hanif. Abu Hanif was a mu'min. He believed in Quran alone. He didn't follow hadith. Therefore, during his time, Abu Hanif, he was accused of being zandiq. He was accused of being dal. And then Shafi'i, in fact, early Shafi'i, they were not praying after Hanafi, people who followed his ideas, who were supporters of him. Abu Hanif did not really establish the sect of Hanafi. It was after him because he was a popular person. He was a hero of monotheists. Under his name, they hijacked his name. They created a fake mazhab after him. But let's come back to Nasakh. One of the verses is this one. ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها نأتي بخير منها أو مثلها. This is chapter 2, verse 106, correct?
Yep, I believe it's Surah Baqarah. Yes, it's true.
Yeah. How is traditionally this is translated or tafsir done to this verse? Tell me.
Yeah, so traditionally, and I personally do also find issues with some of the traditional kind of translations for this. Not translation, but the interpretation of it. They tend to say that ma nansakh min ayatin or nunsiha, that the claim is that Allah is saying that we do not abrogate nansakh from the term nasakh, a verse, or cause people to forget it. Now, I have said, because that even traditionally, even though I'm not personally against abrogation, but I've said that this verse doesn't really prove that, and it comes in the context as well, speaking about Bani Israel and all these things. So, but that's how people traditionally understood it, that they're trying to say Allah is saying we don't make people forget a verse. And from here they built a belief, or they used this to justify the belief that some verses of the Quran were lifted, which once again I completely disagree with. But people feel there's things which are marfu'at tilawa, so they used to be there, walakin rufi'at, Allah lifted the verses. Yeah, so
okay.
Back to you, Professor.
Here it is. The word ayat, this is singular form ayat. The Quran is very interesting book, and it makes so much extra meaning, add nuance, sometimes between plural and singular form. The usage of the Quran, we need to pay attention. When I look at the word ayat in singular form, it is mentioned in the Quran 84 times the word ayah. The word ayat, I don't remember how many times, but perhaps it is more, it is mentioned in the Quran. Ayat is the plural of ayah. Ayah means sign, evidence, proof. Ayat means evidences, signs, proofs, plural. Now, in this verse, it is said ayat. When you look at the Quran, throughout the Quran, the word ayat, it means miracle, signs, not the verses of the Quran, never ever. In this one, let's say we don't know X, maybe another verse you may have questioned, but in all other, you will see all the translation, they understand, they translate it as miracle.
Yeah.
In
So
84,
just to clarify to the viewers that that the term ayah on its own, if you read it as ayah, it has a ta marbuta at the end, or the plural ayat, but ayah which comes 84 times in the Quran, putting this one time aside because that's what we're discussing, but the remaining 83, it's always speaking about a sign. It's never speaking about a verse of the Quran, which we also call today an ayah. Maybe when it comes in the plural form, it is referring to the ayat of the Quran, but not in the singular form. Yeah.
mashallah. Now, the word ayat, it also refers to miracles, signs, and also verses of the Quran, the plural. In fact, implicitly, this tells us one verse of the Quran is not enough to be an ayah, a sign, because it doesn't have the copyright. Like there is a verse of the Quran says, فَإِنَ تَذْهَبُوا, where are you going?
Yeah.
And this is not by itself, you cannot say this is a miraculous word of God, because it's not sufficient. It must be minimum 3 verses in order to have a copyright. This divine mathematical structure is embedded in it. Of course, you may have problem with mathematics. Some of you will hear mathematics. Oh my God, God is above mathematics. Cannot be mathematics. God is a great literary person, poetry, great, but mathematics, oh my gosh, is haram. Cannot be in the
That's
Quran,
an interesting take, by the way, about the 3 verses. So hence the challenge is for the 3. You
absolutely.
know,
And
I've never come across that before. That's interesting.
The minimum chapter you legally it says 3 verse, not 2. Therefore, therefore in 3 verse there will be such a sign in it, miraculous sign, that it will be, you say this cannot be made by human, but 1 or 2 verse will be able to do by human, or randomly people can come up with it. You can find many short verses in the Quran, goodness sake. Even Abu Jahl was talking those words. You cannot say this is the word of God by alone. Therefore, it needs to be minimum in to be copyrighted by God. Now, therefore, when you go back to that verse, it is about miracles. For example, Moses' miracle, parted the Red Sea. For us, it is not miracle. It is a narration of miracle. It's not an extraordinary event that we are witnessing. Therefore, it is not a sign. It is only a riwayat is sign. Therefore, why should I believe? Why should I believe? Therefore, Moses, though people in that time, they watch it, and later it is forgotten or it disappeared, became nasf. And God says, if some miracles that is forgotten or the time passed, it was time limited, God will bring another miracle sign, extraordinary evidence to prove that this is his word. And the Quran has this miracle. In fact, a perpetual miracle, the mathematical structure of the Quran. Incredible thing.
Sure.
And,
I want to come to that as well, Professor, about the mathematical thing. Just before we go to that, a quick question then. You see, if, let's say, we don't accept abrogation momentarily of the Quran, you presumably, you would agree with me that things like slavery today is abrogated. Now, I have argued that slavery is abrogated by trajectory hermeneutics, that this is what the Sharia would have wanted once humanity reaches that stage. It becomes abrogated because the Quran does not, although it does encourage freeing slaves, but it does not categorically in any way ban slavery. So,
false.
Okay.
Very false. You made the biggest, you cannot believe
Did I just come running into it?
This is the biggest mistake, error I ever seen. Yes, what are you saying?
Okay, enlighten us, Professor, because I would love to hear the other understanding. I didn't realize.
You just said 2 times 2 is 3, but it could be 4.
Okay.
It can be 4. It's like that. It's not. The
Okay.
Quran rejects the idea of slavery, not a simple sin, not a simple crime. It is the biggest crime according to Quran, the slavery. Because slavery according to Quran is idol worship. If you have, my brother Layth, if you have your own slave,
Yeah.
that slave will be Abdul Layth. You will call
Okay.
him Abdul Layth, and you will be called Rab, or if Rabbu Falan,
Yeah.
correct?
Hmm.
Therefore, you will be a pharaoh if you have a slave according to the language of the Quran, because Rab means Lord, Abd means slave. Basically, slavery is declaring to be the god of another person. Therefore, Pharaoh is declared in the Quran one of the worst people on earth. Moses was anti-slavery for freedom. La ilaha illallah rejects slavery because la ilaha, no god besides God. But you say, well, I say this, but I will be the God, the Rab of this. But the Quran,
But
Erbab and
arguably,
Ma'allah.
just on that note,
Yeah.
arguably the historians state that the Israelites were never slaves in Egypt. History seems to show that they were second-class citizens. They lived in Ramesses and places like this, but they were never actually slaves of the pharaoh.
I don't believe in historians. I do think that God's word. No, no, no. Historians, they make up a lot of historians, psychologists take words with a mountain of salt, not with
Yeah.
grain of salt, with mountain of salt. Therefore, they were slaves. Of course, I have no doubt because the mathematically proven book, divine book, tells me so. Therefore, historians they discuss on every issue. They have so many contradictions.
Sure.
If you hear a Turkish historian versus Kurdish or Arab historians, they tell the story very differently.
So, what verse of the Quran do you feel is prohibiting slavery?
Slavery, la ilaha illallah, erbabun ma'allah. There is no
Okay.
Rab besides God. Therefore, when you claim that you are Rab, then you declare that you are Pharaoh, that you are like Pharaoh, and this is the biggest sin.
But there
And
are
you
so many verses saying things like, about your slave giving certain.
no, no, no,
No?
no, no. It is
Okay.
mistranslation. Ma malakat aymanukum, for
Hmm.
example, is translated those who are under your hand, those your slaves. Absolutely mistranslation. You know Arabic,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
The word Ayman, anywhere in the Quran, in plural form, it means what, you know? It means your contracts. This is contractual relation besides different than marriage. Marriage with the free peer person is called nikah, and in this one, this is contractual marriage, means someone is slave, you free that slave, you marry that one. Because of that past, psychologically, socially, they have been slave in order to distinguish, because they will be treated with more leniency. If they, let's say, commit adultery, they will have less penalty because they were once slave. They have less personal self-confidence. They have trauma in their lives. Therefore, it is called contractual marriage. And also during war times, someone from the other party, opposing party, enemy party, a woman, if comes and join peacemakers, and that person is not divorced from the husband legally, because the Quran accepts the legality of their marriage. But since it is a different exceptional circumstance, and you can marry with that person, it is called contractual marriage. It's kind of a little
So,
bit
like,
semantic difference.
so the what people call concubines sometimes, and I agree with you, that term doesn't fit it. Is like a It's like a secondary status wife. It's like a wife,
It
but
is
with
bad.
certain.
No, no. This Quran is like a common law marriage. You know, even in our law, we have legally married person and also common law marriage. They don't have formal marriage, but for all purposes, they are considered married people. And similarly, in the Quran, there's contractual marriage because of the circumstances, and there is other persons, two people with their free will, they married. In another person, in order to free them, you marry them and your contractual relationship with them. And therefore, in order to to distinguish them, the detail we may talk
Sure.
a little bit more
Sure.
about
No, I
what
mean,
is the
okay.
reason.
I mean, the
Uh,
slave girls thing, okay, put that aside. Slavery as a whole, as a genre, in countless verses like Abdul Mu'minun Khairum min Mush,
oh, of
that
course, the
from
Quran
the
talks about
Quran speaks
slaves.
about slaves. I
Listen,
mean, so
the
it
Quran
definitely
talks
existed.
about thieves. It doesn't mean Quran approves theft. The Quran about calling murder, it talks about murderers. It doesn't mean
Sure.
it justifies. The Quran talks about slaves who are the
Yeah.
slave of others because there were Jewish people,
Okay.
Christians, Mushriks, they have their own slaves. And the Muslims could not force them. The only way Muslims would do, go buy their slaves and release their slaves. This was if they, for example, Muslim, let's say, do not fast Ramadan
The
and
Tahrir
go what?
Raqaba.
Yeah, tahriru raqaba. It is not their own. They cannot have slave. A Muslim cannot have a slave
Yeah.
because it is become shirk. But go find a slave. There are other populations, other communities. Unfortunately, they enslave people. Go purchase that slave and free that person. Tahriru raqaba.
Tahrir
Mashallah.
Raqaba. No, so I understand that, and I would agree with you to the extent that the Quran clearly encourages. I don't think people could deny by reading the Quran that it encourages Tahrir Raqaba, that it encourages freeing slaves. And I mean, the difference is, I would say it's setting the trajectory for complete emancipation, although it hasn't actualized in the life of the Prophet. But you're
No, it's
arguing
live.
that
It is
in the
live.
life of the Prophet,
You are
slavery is
poisoned.
banned.
You are poisoned by the book that you have read that says absolutely, my brother. Again, please focus about the word Rab. The Quran says there is no Rab besides God. In fact, there is one mistranslation of verse
But
in
is that
chapter 12.
clearly not speaking about shirk?
What you thought?
Arbabun ma'allah, is this not clearly speaking about worshipping, as opposed to the concept like
No, no,
Rabbatul
Rab.
Bayt, or,
No, no.
Rabbul Bayt?
The Rab in the Quran always used for God alone, and it is absolutely rejected the idea of any Rab besides God. There is only one Rab, and therefore, if you say "Ana Rabbukumul Ala," "Ana Rabbukum," like Pharaoh said, "I am your Lord." Pharaoh did not mean that he created people. He was not
Yeah.
that stupid. He didn't say that.
Yeah.
He was talking about that he controls their life. He is the one decides for them. This is to be a slave owner. And therefore, this is according to Quran shirk. You don't need to be shirk to say, I created you. You say, I am your controller. I control your life. You are my abd. If you say you are my abd to anyone,
What if you say
what
that
if
to your children?
listen,
Is that shirk by
which
that
one?
argument? I'm just saying, if you created your children and you control their lives whilst they're
No,
children.
no, you cannot. You cannot claim that. You cannot claim. For example, I left my children to be questioning me from early age. You never become like your father just because your father is. Like, I didn't want them to become a monotheist, rational monotheist, because I am. I said, you will become a monkey. I don't want to be the father of monkeys. Think for yourself. That's the way.
I see. So, okay, so you feel that if, let's say, the Prophet, let's say Islam in the Prophet's lifetime clearly prohibited and clearly banned, outlawed slavery. Two questions. One, why is there no clear verse about it? Two, why if this is such a global phenomenon, why did all the people the Muslims encountered, like Christians, Zoroastrians, Persians, not document this in their history, saying these are a strange people, they outlaw slavery? In fact, they say Muslims had slaves.
No, my brother. First of all, you are reading stories wherever you are reading. You are not 100% who wrote it, when time was written it, whether it is true or not. But when you look at the Quran, if the Quran is a source, we look at it.
Of course.
I look at the Quran. I'm talking about the Quran. I'm talking about Muhammad who is according to the Quran, not Muhammad according to Bukhari, according to this guy, that guy.
Of course, of
Now,
course.
Muhammad according to the Quran was number one against slavery because he didn't accept anyone to be Rab besides God. Therefore, only one Rab. If there is, you say one Rab, only God. If you claim to be Rab besides God, if you say you are my abd, you are my slave, means you call that person instead of Abdullah, you say you are Abdullays, and I am your Rab. According to Quran, it is clearly you are doing shirk and you are following Pharaoh. Isn't this enough? You say it is not prohibited. This is more. This is not a simple sin. This is the only unforgivable sin.
But I
This is
mean,
categorically slavery is much bigger sin than drinking alcohol or killing a person. This is categorically unforgivable sin.
I would
How
agree
can you
with
say
you.
that?
I would agree with you that slavery, once it was abolished, is that. But this thing of rub, is this? I understand not calling somebody, for example, saying, "Look, he's Abdul Layth because he's my slave." I understand that part. I would agree with you, but the term rub as a linguistic term, like, is that not common in Arabic? Like for a woman, rabbatul bayt, or even in other
No.
languages like English, master, calling
As a
like.
verb, it is used. Rabbayakum, something
Yeah,
as
كما
a verb.
ربياني صغيرة.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Rabbayan is sabira. As a
About the
verb is
parents,
used.
it's used. Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
there is you need to be a little bit pay attention. As a verb is used, but not as a noun, because there are differences between. For example, you may do rahmat, yarhamu, rahma,
Yeah.
but you cannot call yourself Rahman. You
Okay.
cannot use the word Rahman for yourself, or
Rahim.
Rahim,
But
even
doesn't
Rahim.
Allah say
No,
about the Prophet, Azizun,
no, no, no,
وهو
no.
بالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم?
It is not a verse in the Quran. It is an addition to the Mus'haf.
Well, no, wait a minute. That verse, the of Surah
Absolutely.
Tawbah, وبالمؤمنين رؤوف رحيم.
These are two hadiths added to the manuscript. We prove it.
Ah, right. Okay, okay. That's
And these
something.
are,
Okay, that's
you found it yourself. MashaAllah.
very
Very good.
interesting. Yes,
I'm
of course.
glad that you
It
found.
clicks now. The
And another time we'll discuss.
yeah.
Another time we'll
Okay, sure. We'll
discuss.
come back to that then. Some other point.
Inshallah.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
let's go back to that one. And about, for example, you write, someone writes a letter, someone write article, but in order to be writer is a little bit different. When you say I am a writer, it is a professional stuff. But because an elementary school kid can write, cannot say I'm writer, or you cannot say he's a writer
Of
or
course,
she's a
of
writer.
course. I
Okay,
understand that.
the same way it was about rap. To be rap, according to the Quran, is only for God. It is very clearly rejected. If you look at the repetition of it, look at it, about 900 sometimes is mentioned, more than 950 times. And
Yeah.
all of them you will see exclusively it is used for God, and the others, for others it is
Okay,
rejected.
what about Yusuf alayhi salam telling the person amma ahadukuma fayasqi rabbahu khamran, that he will, when he's interpreting the dream in the Quran, he says one of you will give his master alcohol to drink. The term rabbahu is used. I mean, is this not in
Hold on,
Arabic
hold on,
understood?
hold on, hold on. Güzel, very nice, very nice. Oh, go ahead, go ahead, go
No,
ahead,
no,
go,
carry on.
go
No,
ahead,
carry.
go ahead.
So is that so? In Arabic, the term when it's used, I would understand that the context. People can understand when you mean like Rabb for ibadah, when you mean like like in English master. Like in the past, we don't use it today so much, but in the past, in classical English, when they used to say "oh master," meaning like in Arabic today, Sayyid, or in Urdu, they use sometimes for somebody who owns a place, Malik, which also is one of the names of, like, they use the same word for Allah, saying Malik will take care of us, but they might say is the Malik at home, meaning the one who owns the property. So, like from the Arabic word Malik. So I'm thinking, is this really such a big deal? Because when Allah is saying arbabum ma'allah, it's clear this is about shirk. It's not talking about tenancy, like landlords, and even in English
Güzel.
today the term landlord. Landlord.
I don't use that word. It is bad word. We don't want to confuse God's attribute with humans. The word Rab is exclusively used for God. And when Joseph says this, Joseph is talking to an idol worshiper, because the same chapter, Joseph tell him, "Arbabun ma'Allah." There's no Rabs besides. Listen, it's same chapter. Goodness sake, how can you miss it? How Joseph can call others his own Rab? He doesn't call his Rab. He says your Rab. You are worshiping that person because you accepted to be an abd of someone else. You should not do it, but it is the reality. Ilahukum. For example, uffin lakum walima ta'buduna min dunillah. This is about when Abraham talks about their, how do you say, their idols.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that he accepted idols. When Joseph talks about his Rab, he talks about, as I told you in the beginning, one verse is mistranslated. Is only one verse about Rab. Innahu Rabbi, Joseph says, he is my Lord. It is translated as if Joseph is referring to the Aziz, to the, how do you say, the governor of the, no, he's not. He's talking about God, his own Lord, in the Rabbi, because in other verse, clearly he says, he only accepts God as his Rab, not anyone else. Very clear. Okay, let's skip this one. And you had one question. I said keep it.
One question, the why not mention the abolition of slavery in clear words in the Quran?
Gosh, that means all the words I'm telling you.
No, I mean, no, I accept that. I accept all of these. No, I accept all of these, but I'm just saying somebody would ask this question, since it's such a big deal, why not just say, that's it. Do not obtain any slavery.
I'm saying, if you read the Quran, understand, La ilaha illallah is abolishment of slavery. Finished. La ilaha illallah. Because it is categorically, if you are claiming that you have abd, you have slave, you are claiming to be Rab, to be God. God says, La ilaha illallah, there is no God besides God. But you claim to be God besides God. Well, this is your problem. This is shirk. This is not a small sin.
Sure.
Cannot be clearer than that.
I get that. Cool. Okay. Right. This thing, moving about the miraculous kind of holistic nature of the Quran, Professor, number 19. This is something that you have authored to be a miracle of the divine, not only in nature, but also in scripture. In fact, that's one of the titles, I believe, of one of your works as well. Tell us a bit about this. Why the number 19? I know in the Quran it does say about the description of hell, alayha tisata ashar, that it has 19 on it, and being a bit vague, what is 19? People say, oh, is it angels or guardians of hell on 19? And then you've highlighted that, look, even things like Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim has 19 in how it's written, 19 letters. And other miracles, numerical miracles in the Quran. Is this, first of all, tell us, in your words, a bit about this.
Well, I think it is a topic for whole new session that we do together on this subject.
Sure.
Because it's so important. It is message for this time, and it's very controversial, and it proves that the Quran is word of God. It proves that letter by letter it's protected, not by Abu Falan, Ibn Falan, by God alone, according to a code which has error correction function. And the saying Muslims, they easily say the Quran is word of God. But you ask them, why do you know that this is word of God? Or pick any chapters from it. How do you prove that this is word of God? It is an extraordinary claim you are making. You say this is not a human language. Well, this is human language. It sounds like any Arab.
Yeah.
What is about this? What is the big deal? This is great, the biggest claim that you can make, and you don't have even an ordinary evidence about it, let alone an extraordinary evidence. Well, it says it is literary miracle. You are a literary expert, professor of better than Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, Mughira. Okay, tell me what are these miracles? What is the standard, your literary excellence? Do you have any objective standard? No, because I like it. Well, you like some poetry or some book, some fiction, it doesn't make it word of God. Your like is not an extraordinary like. It's not an evidence. Therefore, if you ask, I challenge all the Muslim scholars who escape from this number 19 like zebras.
In
I
fact, that's
challenge
the
them.
name of one of your book, isn't it?
Yeah, running
Running
like
like
zebras.
zebras.
And they do. And you will see, I had a debate with top religious scholar in Turkey. He was the former head of religious affairs. He was graduate of Medina University, perhaps Al-Azhar. He's professor. He has written this much tafsir. If you really drop it on someone, it would kill a person. So many books, volumes of lies inserted in between verses. Tafsir means I put words in God's, basically. They are inserting volumes of false stuff in the Quran, and he escaped from the studio twice. It was live debate among millions of people watched. It was the most rated program. And you will see this guy. It is on YouTube. You can see Edip Yuksel, Süleyman Ateş, and the Professor Süleyman Ateş. He couldn't handle, and he lied looking in the eyes of millions of people. He lied. He said, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim has no 19 letters. It has 21 letters. Can you imagine? You know Arabic. If you ask Arabic school children, elementary kids, how many letters in Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, count them. They will all come up with 19. Even ask Microsoft, Bill Gates. Even he knows.
Is this not the orthographical point, though, about how it's written in the Quran? Is that the issue here with 19 and 20? Because they not counting the alifs when they're writing them.
They add their hallucinations. They said there are two invisible alifs there. when it comes to 19, they start hallucinating.
No, but to be fair, the one in Rahman, is that not the second one? Because the first one's with Ism, and that one's silent. But I thought the second one would have been with Rahman, the stretch.
There is no alif after meme. If there was alif, meme, alif, and then noon would be separate from meme.
Yeah, but I mean, but we don't read it as Rahman. We read it as Rahman.
I know it is written. Listen, I'm not counting the vibration coming from your mouth, which has really become very difficult. How you pronounce. We count the letters and the words, the visible one, and that is the physical fact. Otherwise, the sound coming from your mouth, pronunciation of Bismillah will be different than the others. There will be million different pronunciation kind of. If we take the graph of these vibrations, you will say all of them are different. There is no miracle.
So just for people to have a brief understanding. Now I know you've written a huge amount on this as well, and your whole website is actually named after this 19.org, but. What you're saying is that the Quran has a code, an underlying code, which ties in. There's like a meta structure that ties in with the number 19. It's very integral to the kind of divine coding of the Quran.
Absolutely.
That's what we're saying. There's like an engineering going on.
19 is God's signature, not only in the Quran, is also in the Bible, in Old Testament, and also in the nature. And in this book, I give a lot of examples, but majority of people are blind to God's signs, either in the book or the other. Absolutely, it is. They say they walk around, but they are ignorant. They are ghafil of God's signs.
Because some things, Professor, like there's things like I'll just say about myself personally, certain things I've heard about mathematics in the Quran, which I found very wow, like straight away. Like things like, let's say, the amount of times Allah has mentioned dunya in different verses. He's mentioned akhirah in the same number of verses. There's a symmetry, even though they're not next to each other. And I heard you've also written about the number of the word day has been written 365 times in the Quran. I find that very wow. These kind of things, I think the normal public will understand straight away. The thing about the number 19 doesn't it doesn't resonate immediately with people. Like they won't understand why is this such a divine
It is
thing.
very clear. First of all, what you mentioned, they also tied to number 19. But the Quran, this is a symmetrical nature of the Quran, like or semantical mathematics, I would say, like the meaning of the words and their frequencies are related to each other, like in pairs. The word dunya and akhirah both are mentioned 115 times, and the word melek, angel, and shaitan, both mentioned in the Quran. Their frequencies are 88 times, and the word shahr in singular form is mentioned in the Quran 12 times.
Shahr
The word
means month for people.
month. Yeah, the word yawm in singular form is mentioned 365 times. Interestingly, the verse where the first time the word shahr mentioned, it is in chapter 2, verse, I don't remember, the 180
Is it
something.
Shahr Ramadan? I think is it that
Yeah,
one?
and then the last word shahr, the 12th one, between them there are exactly 354 days. It is the number of days in a lunar year. Very interesting because the month is involved. There are so many details. And the word qul and qalu, they said 332 times. The word qul, say to them, it is as a response, it is 332 times. They are not always in the same place
Of
equally
course.
repeated.
Wow.
Now, and in fact, I checked the word Rasul that time when I learned about this. I studied it. I was in prison that time. I said, let me check the word Rasul, how many times mentioned. I found out the word Rasala, all the roots, derivatives of the word Rasala, 512 times. Rasala, Yurselu, Mursalin, Irsal, all these Rasul, all the derivatives of the word Rasala means messenger,
Of course.
deliver message. And then the names of the messengers, prophets, I checked in the Quran, 27 of them, but there was some question about a couple of them. With the one exception, it was exactly 512. For example, Moses' name is mentioned 136 times. Abraham's name, I remember, is 69 times. Muhammad's name 4 times. Salih 9 times. Adam 25 times. Isa 25 times. Interestingly, Mesalu Isa kemesili Adam.
Yeah.
Isa is similar, and their numbers also similar. Now, this is
Wow.
a numerical structure in the Quran. However, 19
Yeah.
is
Because
much,
this people can straight away fathom what you're saying and they
but
can be
number
wowed.
19 is
Yeah.
specifically mentioned in the Quran as a test to distinguish those people who trust God, the honest people, from hypocrites and from ingrates. Therefore, it is test. Majority of people are failing this test. This is exactly what God wants. God says, "This,
God
oh,
wants them to fail.
of course, it is this worldly life is for test." And when do you think when Moses came with those miracles, majority of people believed it? They see it? No, they said it is fake. When Jesus came, how many people really supported him? He showed all the miracles. Majority of people did not see it. The same about this one. It is a powerful miracle. When I use this miracle against atheists, they cannot refute it. Check my debate with
You know,
Michael Sherman.
a question here. There was, I believe, is it Ivan Panin, and after him, other people in Christianity from the, I think, the 19th century, a Russian convert to Christianity, who also kind of pioneered this research, yes, on theomatics. One could say because he argues a very similar thing about the Bible, argues things like number 8, number 7, number 50. Uh, is this not a similar thing? What makes this unique? I'm just saying. Somebody could ask
Panin,
this question. Yeah.
Panin, I think, has some very impressive observations. That truth, but I don't see that it is a system. It is anecdotal, separate observations. And I do think in the Bible, in the Old and New Testament, there is mathematical structure exactly based on number 19. It's not only belief, it is true. Because in 11th century, Rabbi Judah has written 8 volumes on number 19 in the Old Testament. And 7 volumes, unfortunately, is lost. But we have 1 volume of this book. Just a 2-page translation of it proves beyond doubt that number 19 is also a code in Old Testament, and 100% sure it is in the New Testament. If you find the original Hebrews, and we'll be able to see exactly the same because it is divine signature.
Yeah,
Now,
I know that the old Hebrews, I believe, they set their entire calendar on a 19-year cycle. So even though they would introduce leap months,
meton
the
cycle.
yeah,
It is
but
called
the whole
meton.
meta cycle, yep, that would be 19
Meton.
years exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now let me come to number 19 about that one. The verse says, "Alayha tis'ata ashar," on it is 19. But before that, there are 2 verses mistranslated, very distorted by traditional translations. For example, فقال إن هذا إلا قول البشر سأصله سقر وما أدراك ما سقر لا تبقي ولا تذر. It doesn't leave nor spare. It is not more, not less. لواحة للبشر. It is obvious. It is obvious, like lawha, like a tablet, like a screen to humanity.
Right, okay.
لواحة للبشر.
Okay, I understand. Because people
ألواح, لوحة.
understood that to mean about the skin, isn't it? Like it lawahatun lil bashar,
Now
scorching.
you know the Quran. Look at the Quran. The word bashar never mentioned as a skin in anywhere. In the word throughout the Quran, قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم. Say I am a human being like you. He doesn't say I am a skin like you. Correct?
Yeah,
Or
true.
the previous verse just before this one, few verses ago I read it. قال إن هذا إلا قول البشر. He said this is a human word. He didn't say this is the skin word. This is the word of skin. No. And the following verse, in fact, after عليها تسعة عشر, the verse is long. وما هي إلا ذكرى للبشر. It's finished. And then they translate that one also as a reminder for humanity, for humans. They don't say as a reminder for skin. But somehow this verse, they mistranslated as a skin.
And
which
what did
skin,
the one before it's aslihi saqar, that I will cast him into hellfire? How do you translate that then?
it is not hell. It is
It's not
saqar. Leave
saqar.
it. God doesn't want you to rush before God. ولا تحرك به لسانك ولا تعجل به ثم إن علينا بيانه. God wants you, says, so sleep saqar. I will put him in a difficult situation. Saqar. In fact, saqar literally means the heat that boils the person's forehead. It is really frontal lobe. It is metaphor used. I will punish that person through frontal lobe. And وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا سَقَرْ. Do you know what a saqar means? Don't rush, make it hell. God, if God wanted, could say, النار سأصليه جهنم. سأصليه جهنم. God doesn't use that word. Specifically use the word saqar with a connection with frontal lobe, because this is an intellectual challenge. And then says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا سَقَرْ. Do you know what the saqar means? لا تبقي ولا تذر. It is not baqiya, becomes far. It is not leave behind. It's not more. It is not less. Means it is precise. لواحة للبشر. It is universal. It is obvious for everyone, not for Arabs alone. لواحة. الواح. It is plural of lawha. But therefore, it is description of mathematics in the Quran. And that the Quran says what? Kitabun marqum. It is numerical book. They even mistranslate this verse. They want to hide. Satan wants to hide that the Quran is a numerical book. Kitabun marqum yashhaduhu al-muqarrabun. The numerical book, those who are close to God, they witness it. But those who are not witness, they will not. They will be fistijin. They will be confounded by their ignorance. But their dogmas, they will not see it. And those who witness the Kitabun Marqum, they go aliyin, they go up. They are enlightened by it. their paradigm change. They become rational monotheists. They become really peacemakers. They become honest people. But those who are not witnessing the Kitab al-Marhum, they are in their own prisons, in prisons of ignorance and corruption. Now, let's come to the 19.
Yeah, I was going to say that,
Yeah.
you see, could it be as well as an objection? Could it be that there is this number 19, for example, these kind of correlations, but that's because human beings have this kind within the subconscious, this kind of this number. Like, as an example, if we take a look at poetry, let's take a look at poetry now. Even in English, historically, the pentameter. Now, before, or in Arabic, the bahur, before they were discovered, people just knew to kind of say something on a certain pattern and it sounded right without even knowing the mathematics behind it. Yet it's not necessarily, there must have been some reasons in our subconscious why we like certain words to be 5 or like certain words to be in groups of 10 or in groups of 6. There must be something there, but does that make it divine?
Listen, of course, initially your reaction is you don't know it, and you all the way you are justified to have this suspicion about it. Absolutely, it is a very good way to start. But if you stop here because you made up a possible explanation, but without studying, and that will be dogmatism. There will be bigotry. I challenge you, I say I challenge everyone, all the mathematicians. I have debated with top mathematicians in the world, with Carl Sagan, with in fact recently a Princeton mathematician. He is a legend. He died from COVID-19. I debated with him for hours. In fact, one of our last debates, I put it on YouTube, John Cohen, and I debated with top mathematicians, and but no one is able really to deal with this, because it is a powerful proof that the Quran is extraordinary, because the pattern, the human language or Arabic is arbitrary, it's not mathematical, it's not. And the frequency of letters and words will not be multiple of 19 just because you write a poetic stuff. Never able you will be able to do that. But you will see some patterns, very clear, obvious, and can be made, of course. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim have 19 letters. You can come up with many statements with 19 letters. But when you go to deep and deep, you will find is incredible, intricate, and detailed, and very sophisticated mathematical structure. It comes from simple, that every person can see it, can understand it, and at one level, some mediocre people, some, and then there will come a point everyone will give up to say this is coincidence or this can be made by human being. And therefore, this is proven to be word of God. And also prophecy. I am not going to give any examples right now. Only one example we gave about the letters of Bismillah, because it is so huge.
Sure.
But I want to one day start at the beginning.
Sure.
But I want to tell you it is also a prophecy. Imagine this 19 is mentioned in which chapter, my brother?
What chapter?
Which chapter is 19 is mentioned? 19 is mentioned in only one chapter.
Yeah.
There are 285 numbers mentioned in the Quran. As a repetition, as a unique numbers, there are 30, but through repetition, 285. But 19 is mentioned only once in one chapter. Which chapter?
Right, you're gonna have to. The chapter, I'm not sure about the number.
Come on.
I can bring it up on the phone.
Yeah, I want you to.
You want me to bring it up?
Tell you.
Okay, I can bring it up.
That's okay. I will tell you, and everyone check it. It's chapter 74, my brother.
Okay, 74.
Now, chapter 74 is called Muddassir,
Yeah.
the hidden one, Dathara, because it starts, Ya ayyuhal muddathir qum fanzir. Oh, the hidden one, come out and warn. The hidden one. And 19 was hidden in that chapter. For how long?
Okay.
For
I
exactly
see.
19 times 74 lunar years after his revelation. Let me repeat again.
Okay.
19 is mentioned in chapter 74.
Okay.
19 in chapter 74. And the meaning, the implication of 19 remained hidden
For
for 19 times 74
74
lunar
lunar
years.
years.
And it was in Miladi in 1974 it was unveiled. 1974 Miladi,
Miladi, it was
19
unveiled.
times 74 lunar years later, by someone whose name is mentioned in the Quran 19
19
times,
times.
Rashad.
Rashad, yeah.
And then this chapter, which is known Al-Muddassir, the hidden one, the secret, the hiding one, start with one statement. Ya ayyuhal muddathir qum fa'anzir.
Anzir.
These two verses make one sentence. Ya ayyuhal muddathir, or the
Come,
hidden one, qum,
stand,
come out,
rise, yeah.
rise, and fa'anzir, and warn. And this is 19 letters. If you look at the numerical value of each letter, abjad value, it adds up to exactly what number? Give me a
I
number,
don't,
my brother.
right, I don't know. I can abjad حوز هدي كلمة.
Come
I'll have
on, but
to.
think about it.
If
Think.
you add
What
19
should
from
be?
the
Which
abjad,
number would be good?
74. Is it 74?
1974.
It
Yes,
is.
it is exactly 1974, the number of the year that
and
it
wasn't
was discovered.
and wasn't Rashad Khalifa born on the 19th of November or something?
Yeah, but this is in 1973. He published a book. In fact, it is November. I think October or November. The signature says 1973. The introduction. In that book, it is about the letters, these huruf muqatta, these so-called mysterious letters of the Quran. In that book, he doesn't have any clue about number 19 yet. He
Okay.
discovered exactly the following few months later, and then first time in Radio Trablus, he uh, unveils to the world. I have that his declaration in Radio Trablus in Arabic. In fact, I posted somewhere in YouTube. I have the cassettes of that one. It is on it. It's
Can,
1974.
can I ask
Yeah.
about Rashad Khalifa, because you were very close to him, a dear friend and a mentor to you, and obviously he's inspired you as well in many ways, as well as many other people. Is it true that he claimed to be then a messenger from God? Is this true? People make this claim.
Yeah,
I want.
he
Yeah.
claimed to be messenger of God. In fact, he before he claiming to be messenger of God, I was in Turkey at that time. I haven't met him. I studied the Quran. I look at this number 19. It is not a small thing. It is incredible discovery. It is divine secret that God led to this time for our generation, the generation of computer and information. And therefore I said, this is because the Quran says God, the secrets unveils to messengers in the chapter 72, it's called Jinn.
Okay.
Only the secrets, he unveils the secrets through messengers. وَأَحْصَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ عَدَدًا. God counted everything in numbers. Anyway, I said this cannot be coincidence, and God must have chosen this person. And I checked, I said, let me look at his name. What is it? I found that all the derivatives of Rashad is mentioned exactly 19 times, and the form Rashad twice. And my God, it is exactly incredibly prophetic in chapter 40. If you read these ones, it is beautifully, incredibly prophetic. It is parallel, happens exactly this time. It was happened during Moses time. I'm sorry, in Egypt during Moses time. It relates to Joseph, and then people says Joseph was the last messenger. They reject Moses, and God rejects them. They says in the past, you in fact while Joseph came as a messenger, you rejected him, but after him you made him as a last messenger. Now you are rejecting Moses in the name of Joseph, whom with the same mentality you rejected him while he was a messenger. And therefore, the word Rashad is mentioned sandwiched in this verse about the lost messenger.
Okay.
Anyway,
I mean,
he claimed, when
yeah.
I was in Turkey, I look at this, I said, you must be a messenger of God. And then several months later, when he declared his messengership, I had no problem with that. And after
Sure.
meeting him, I was
But
convinced.
to be clear, when he's
Yeah.
saying messenger, is he saying like I'm somebody who's like messenger, I've received divine revelation, or is he just saying I'm like a scholar, a mujtahid?
No, commissioned by God, a messenger chosen by God to
Okay.
deliver, to unveil this miracle, and also to expose the Sunni and Shiite distortion against the Quran. And he did that. But the Quran doesn't make Muhammad as the last messenger. The Quran clearly says, ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن
لكن
رسول
رسول الله
الله وخاتم
وخاتم
النبيين.
النبيين.
Muhammad is a messenger of God and the last prophet. It doesn't say last prophet and last messenger. Prophet is the one, a messenger who brings the book also, but every prophet is messenger, but every messenger may not be prophet.
Okay, right. So that khusus umum. So just for the viewers, that it
Yeah,
does say Khatam al-Nabiyyin, and Nabi is the one who brings scripture, and
yeah.
you're saying a Rasul is the one who just he can just revive a message.
MashaAllah,
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
Although I think commonly people do it the other way around, isn't it? But
Exactly,
yeah,
but
people do it. They say
Sunni
Rasul is the one
distortion is the
with
opposite.
a book. Right, okay. And you know, Rashad Khalifa, when he analyzed the whole text, he saw the number 19 standing up everywhere except in those two verses, isn't it? The end of Surah Tawbah. That's why he felt maybe they were kind of interpolations into the Mus'haf. Is that
I would
correct?
like to discuss this,
That on
inshallah, in
another
one
in
session.
another point. Okay, sure.
Hey,
He
yeah,
himself was unfortunately was assassinated. Is that correct?
yeah, he was assassinated, and it is also a major issue because in 1989, from 38 countries, Muslim scholars gathered in Medina under the leadership of Ibn al-Baz, the Saudi
Bin Baz,
clergyman,
the
Bin
Salafi Bin
Baz,
Baz. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Salafi Bin Baz. And they were gathering for the affair of Salman Rushdie because Iran declared Salman Rushdie, the Iran put about $1 million on Salman Rushdie's head. It was major issue that time. It was number one news in 1989. Therefore, Saudi Arabia did not want to stay behind because Iran getting the leadership of the so-called Muslim world, including Sunnis, and Saudi was competing with Iran. Therefore, they wanted to have a say on the issue. They gathered from 38 countries in Medina, and they declared that fatwa, Rashad and Rushdie, both of them are murtad, apostate. And then after that, less than a year, he was killed by Al-Fuqra. A group was affiliated to Al-Qaeda. The mastermind of 9/11, three of them were in Tucson that time. One of them was clearly involved, and the others most likely too. But from his interview, it was he was
And
basically, yeah.
strangely, I've read that the person who did this was captured 19 years
According to
after.
Wikipedia, the University of Arizona is a public research university in Tucson,
This is
Arizona.
listen to
Yeah,
us,
yeah. So,
Sarit talking. Okay,
he
yeah, it
was
was
captured 19 years after.
exactly. It was not. He was not the mastermind, but he was the one who used for the as a killer, as a hitman, and he
Yeah.
was captured exactly 19 years later. But there are so many 19s.
Yeah,
If I
and he
tell
was
you,
sentenced on the 19th of I think
yeah, yeah,
December.
yeah, 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 many. But these
That's
are small things. Let me
yeah.
tell you about Masjid Tucson. Masjid Tucson. Tucson, the city zip code is 57. It's 3 times 19. And the
Okay.
masjid where it belongs, the area code is 19. 57 is the city of Tucson. 19, the area code of Masjid Tucson. And later we look at the parcel number of masjid, parcel in the city, the land number. It was 114. And years later, about a few years ago, there was an article at Tucson Weekly. It was randomly I came across. It was about historical buildings in Tucson, and they included this one too. These were Masjid Tucson was Rashad's masjid. And then I saw it very interesting. It says it was built in year 1919. And many, it's incredible. These are few, these are very trivial, no one knows. But so many signs, these are just on the side in the footnote. But the
Sure.
major signs, the COVID-19, my dear brother,
COVID-19.
no. It is not a coincidence. I'm telling you,
Okay.
you will see many more signs on 19. In fact, the last 20 years, three biggest event in the world, it was clearly strongly related to number 19, but many did not even notice it. One was Y2K problem. It was the ignorance of the number 19. The computer programmers, they ignored the number 19, and it cost almost $1 trillion, $800 billion. And the whole fear, the whole year from 1999 passing to 2000, the whole world was terrified. If you look at the Time magazine's cover, the end of the world, Y2K problem. And the reason was because the number 19 was ignored. There is interesting poetic justice. And the mastermind of the murderers of Rashad Khalifa, years later, they attacked the United States, and 19 of them were because the United States government was accomplice with Saudi Arabia. That is my contention. I have 99% almost evidence. Of
Which
course,
is 19 more than 80%, Sheikh.
well, I am more than 90% because I have so many evidence. I cannot say 100%, but there are so many reasons to believe that there was United States basically turned a blind eye to them carrying out these murders. And then ultimately it caught with them. The guys who murdered Rashad Khalifa, they attacked the United States in 9/11, and they end up become 19 hijackers, not 20. They started 20. Do you know that? 19 hijackers.
It is actually, now that you say it, yes, of course, I mean, I had forgotten for a moment, but yes, that is it. 19 was the number.
Yeah, but they were the same
It's-
guys. Yeah.
Right, cool. Let's take some questions. I know a lot of people have been trying to fire some questions. Let's take some questions for the Sheikh. My first question straight away, Sheikh. When you first fell in...
I don't like the word sheikh. I don't like the word
Professor, sorry.
Just call me Edip.
Adib,
My first. Edip.
when
I like my name.
Adib, when you first fell in love, was she 19 years old? This is the question.
I love it. Well, I was born in 1957.
Oh, which is multiple of
103.
19.
19 times 103. And at 19 years age, I went to college, my college year. And without knowing the number 19, I learned it first time from Ahmed Deedat. I spent about 2 weeks with Ahmed Deedat in 1980 in a international youth conference by WAMY, W-A-M-Y. It is called World Assembly of Muslim Youth, and the Turkish Ministry of Youth. And before hearing number 19 in the Quran, 2 years before, I established my own group among the biggest youth organization, and about 50, 60 high school students. I call them FT19. Fatih 19, Victory 19.
Okay.
I had no clue about the importance of 19. Even I didn't know about the verse in the Quran. I read the Quran, but so many numbers in the Quran. I had no clue even that time that Basmala had 19 letters. But among all the names, I said, let me give a name, a number, and then I gave FT19. They were writing on the walls graffiti. They were giving away pamphlets, and they were basically it was a training. I was preparing them for college. We were controlling colleges at that time.
It's always had a deep connect with you, Sheikh.
Oh, very interesting.
For some questions, I know people are posting some questions, but something that has been asked already, and I will. We did touch up briefly before a reinterpretation of the Quran, a reformist translation of the Quran, verses like the hitting verse. You've said that this has been an error in translation historically, that فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ was never to hit them. How have you interpreted this verse?
Daraba is like strike in English, is a multi-meaning word.
Yeah.
It has many words, like daraba masala. It's not beating an example. It is to give an example.
Give an example, yes.
فَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ عَلَى جُيُوبِهِنَّ. Let them cover their chest with their clothes.
Yeah.
And ضَرَبَ عَلَى آذَانِهِمْ, made them deaf, not hear. ضَرَبَ عَلَى آذَانِهِم, correct?
Exactly.
And
or to travel as well.
Travel.
فَضْرِبُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ.
في الأرض, ضرب في الأرض. And ضرب. Therefore, sometimes even without fi, without in, it means ضرب. And فضرب,
برجلك.
mashallah. And then when I was translating the Quran in 1989, I had problem with this translating as a beat, because my first reflexes as a Sunni was to understand a beat. When come to the woman, it should be beaten, correct? Nothing other meaning. You know, we don't even translate like you know, about the heifer, sacrifice a heifer and apply a piece. It doesn't say beat it with the heifer. And even for heifer, we don't use the word beat.
This
but
is about the cow, the sacred cow.
You remember?
فَضْرِبُوهُ بِبَعْضِهَا.
Mashallah. It doesn't say beat it and hit it with that. It is basically to match it. It is apply to it, touch it, something like that. But somehow when it comes to women, we pick the worst meaning. And I had problem, but I couldn't translate it otherwise around. I had an orange paper. On it, I was writing the verses which I needed further research. And then after that, about 2 years later, I went to Turkey. I hadn't published my translation yet, but I had finished it. I was incubating on some verses. And then I was in Ankara in 1992, I believe. I went to
you're teasing us, Sheikh.
Listen, I went to a cinema, a theater. It was about, there was, what was the name of it? Oh my gosh. There was a movie about a woman and friends. They go to Africa. They have incredible adventure in Africa. And the woman, this European woman, become the concubine or a wife of a polygamist tribeman. Anyway, in one scene, these older wives, the previous wives, they are arguing with her, and one of those wives tell her, "Idrib, get out," in Arabic.
Yeah.
It's English.
Like in
movie.
English, like beat it. Like they say
exactly. Beat it. Have the word beat. Exactly. It was English movie. But in that movie, I mentioned this movie in my article I think here. And then there are a few Arabic words. This is one of them. When I heard it, my gosh, really? In North Africa, they say, beat it, idrib, get out. She was telling women to get out from the room, but telling her idrib. And then I later learned, yes, they say idrib. And then that's it. And فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, have them get out of the home, because you give them chances if they are keeping flirting. In fact, this verse, there are 4 keywords mistranslated. قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاء, they make it حُكَّام عَلى النِّسَاء. قَوَّام means the provider, not necessarily the dictator, but they tend to translate as the dictator over the woman. And then
I've said that verse about the provision, about providing, qawama, was more a descriptive as opposed to prescriptive. It was just, this is how society was.
Exactly. Beautiful. I'm proud of you. It is exactly describing it. Yeah. And the word nushuz is also mistranslated if you feel rebellion from women, but the same nishaza is mentioned several words down in the same chapter for men to be issues against women, but they don't translate it as men rebelling women. They say something else like disloyalty. Well, here is disloyalty too. And woman, obedient woman, they say it obedient to men, but throughout the Quran, that word qanitat, it is always obedience to God, not to man, to another human being. But when it comes to that, there are 4 words over there by male dominant clergymen is mistranslated in order to create authority and oppression against women.
Yeah. And you, in your book, in the introduction, you've got a whole section on that, by the way, for people. And that is also the sections discussing some of the errors in translation is on your website. I've seen it there. It is part of it. You put it in a table and compared.
Yeah, I picked an example in detail. In my footnotes, I debate if I translate differently than Orthodox translations. I provide a reason, explanation, and argument for it. But I picked about 15 major ones as an example and to teach people that you don't need to know Arabic to see the problem in the traditional translations. And I compare. Yes.
I'll bring some just to show people. I'll just bring it up on the screen now just to show them. Right, that was just so they can see. This is from the website 19.org. They can see some of the table right now and an example discussion going on regarding the hitting verse, Surah 4, verse 34. So, okay, just I'll bring it back to where we were. Right, yep, that I just showed them on the screen. Edip, that's just so they get an idea.
Thank you.
But okay, yep. So these are some of the popular mistranslations, like the hitting verse, the qawama verse, things like this.
Go to the next one. Can you see the next one?
On there,
the same page, or it goes to the next page. Something all in the same page, or there is.
Here it goes on about no, it's still about the hitting right there. No, then it's the next page. It goes to the next page.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see if I can just.
What is the next one?
The next one is should the thief's hand be cut off?
Okay.
And, yep, and you've translated that as the means, isn't it? Saying that the cutting of the means. Is that correct? As opposed to, and I'll just show that to the audience as well, so they can see that. There it is. So you've got the translation there of Abdullah Yusuf Ali, of Pickthall saying about cutting the hands, Shakir as well saying cut off the hands. Is that Ahmed Shakir, by the way? No. This is an English. And you've got yours saying to cut or cut off their hands, stroke means as a punishment.
There are multiple ideas you can tell, and deliberately God made it that way so that people will get, but according to other verses, you cannot cut off their hands. I discuss it there. It could be one of the understanding, but it must be mar cut or cut the means.
And you've mentioned regarding levying taxes, you've stated in your translation reparation.
Absolutely, it is war related. It has nothing to do with religion. After aggressive wars against you, they basically they aggress against you, they cause damage, and then after war they will be levied some reparation, war reparation.
You've also translated the is it the qanitat or the characteristics of Muslim women, but those who say as opposed to fasting, you've made it as active in society.
Of course, sayihat, those who say it has nothing to do with saimat. It doesn't say saimat. They didn't like women traveling, activist women, sayihat, and they mistranslated as a saimat. It's not saimat. It is sayihat, means travel. And also ebkaran, means early woman, ahead. It means the leaders. But somehow, like Abu Bakr, He was the leader.
Are you going to tell us, Adib, that on polygamy we're allowed to marry 19? Is this what you're going to say?
You are trouble. Polygamy is, if you look at the beginning of chapter 4, polygamy is in the context. In fact, it's a sandwich between verses about the orphans whose father killed. Yeah. It is about the mothers who are widows, who have orphans, in order to really protect the orphans and their mothers.
Yeah.
And that was the option for them, and it was not just for sexual thing. It was an exigent circumstance.
If it is for sexual, are you saying that it's not allowed if it's just for sexual?
No, you cannot marry for if they are widows with the orphans. Yes, you can marry.
Okay,
that's fine. It is who are we to say they should be remaining without marriage? Usually, if there are less men, and you doom them forever not having a support of men psychologically or in socially or economically. Therefore, if someone can afford it, and it is really not easy to have to women, especially with children, orphans. And it was in exigent circumstances. It's not marrying like virgins and stuff. Absolutely not.
Sheikh, I mean, Adib, you're going to lose so much of your male following now. This is... They're going to be like, what? And you've taken this away?
Let's see the questions.
So the next question is, what is your view on the definition of Khatam al-Nabiyyin being the best and not the last prophet, and Nabi being synonymous with Rasul fil Kitab, when it mentions Ismail innahu kana صادق الوعد وكان رسولا نبيا?
Yes.
That's a question by Sol of Lisa.
Yeah, I Khatama means to end, the seal. And I understand as the last, and because the Quran is also bayan linnas, and the Quran talks about Muhammad's time, Muhammad's ummah to be related to the end of the world, and therefore it lasts until the end of the world. I'm very tired right now.
Sure, not a problem.
It is it is a subject I would love to talk, but not now, because I would like to discuss about the end of the world, because the Quran gives the time of end of the world too. It is unlike it is believed, it is absolutely, the Quran provides a time for the end of the world too.
Sure. There's a question here by Inaya, who had said, number 19 reoccurs in my life before something bad happens to me. I mean, Sheikh, or brother, or how do you feel about questions or thoughts like this about number 19 associated with maybe superstition then?
Of course, people may have superstition, but what is in the Quran, people, I think they can hallucinate 19s. It doesn't mean there is 19 there.
Sure.
And I see some people manipulating numbers, putting together next to each other, coming up with 19s. No. And one out of 19 numbers will be multiple of 19 by random. Therefore, we need to take into consideration that one. And also, if you are manipulating numbers, you have a bunch of numbers, you add them together this way, that way, and in many different ways, of course you will get many. And therefore, I am very skeptical about many people coming up with 19s. I reject them when I see it is anecdotal, or it is arbitrary, or it is mathematical. Sometimes it is mathematical property. It has nothing to do with a deliberate thing. Therefore, but the Quran is not like any of this. It's not numerology. It's not speculation. It is physical facts. If one day we come together, I would like to bring someone. I invite people who reject number 19, who think they studied it, who think they know that it is speculation we do, or we make it up. Absolutely, I'm ready to discuss against them. Meanwhile, I want to invite Zakir Naik, or Numan. What is Numan's name?
Numan Ali Khan.
Yeah, Numan Ali Khan. Once they, because these people are misleading the people because they talk very well, they are very slick. Unfortunately, they promote Hadith and Sunnah, all these lies. They keep them in darkness and in ignorance. And therefore, I challenge them. Let's discuss. If you would like to discuss against someone who believes in Quran alone as a source of Islam or system, God's system, come. We would discuss, and I will have chance to face. But
Sure.
if they are
Now
escaping, they are.
that would be amazing if they do take you up on that. I would love to
They
uh,
should. They should. If
see
they are
that.
not, they are not moral because they talk behind us. They
Hmm.
talk. They promote the idea of Hadith Sunnah. They say those who follow Quran alone, they are misguided.
Yeah.
Well, I am one of those the leaders of this movement,
Hmm.
which started with Prophet Muhammad, and therefore come against me. If you are honest, look at the Quran. All the messengers and their friends, they always on the streets, in
Yeah.
the public square, they discussed, they debated with people.
Yeah.
It is one of the ibadah.
See, and
If you
I
are
would just like to clarify as well for people. Some people had asked about my position. Now, I am Sunni, and my distinction, I suppose, difference is. Although I am critical of several parts of the Hadith literature, I don't reject the whole thing. But I'm not about calling people who choose, let's say, to only stick to the Quran as deviants or misguided. At the end of the day, it's what makes sense to people. And this kind of clerical approach about outcasting people, I'm personally against that. That's not, I mean, that's just all about powers of position and things like that. So just because somebody had asked that. Adib, a question here. You know, the Quran, the different recitations. What are your thoughts on that? Is it only Hafs and Asim, this riwayah that we have, or are you feeling that all of them are equally kind of valid, or do you not have much thoughts on that?
Well, on the street, I saw this Asim's version.
Yeah,
Is called which one? Is it Hafs version?
yeah.
Hafs. Are you talking about this Hafs
Yes,
versus
yes, yes.
Warsh?
See,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
On the street, I saw this Hafs version. I found out that number 19 is in it an incredible mathematical structure. It cannot be coincidence. It's very precise, and it has some error correction ability. When I do check, I found out in this version there are some errors, spelling errors, a couple of them, and also two verses added. And when I check with the older manuscripts, I found that it is justified, at least in two very important cases. And therefore, I don't have any doubt about that.
Okay.
And the Warsh version is not much different. There are a few differences, but I see that this is exactly mathematical structure. Quran is in it. It cannot be coincidence. It cannot be fake.
Sure. I mean, that's, I've heard some other people say that as well, that they've said that they feel the mathematical structures stand regarding this, but they're not sure about the other readings. Somebody's asked a question here. Do you have any thoughts on Ghulam Ahmad Parvez, who was from the Indian subcontinent and from Pakistan specifically, and he was also rejected. He's also part of the Quraniyun movement.
I haven't read much, but as far as I know, I like the person. Of course, I may disagree with some of his position, but I think that he was very close to the message of Quran alone. Mashallah, that is commendable. Yeah.
All right, somebody's asking a question, but I can't seem to see the Arabic very clearly. It says, "Watilka ni'matun." Can't see the rest of it. It seems to. Shouldn't this categorically imply that slavery should not be carried out? Right. Okay. I'm not sure. I can't unfortunately see the rest
Hold
of that
on.
verse. It
تلك
says.
وتلك نعمة.
I can't really see. Allah in Bani Israel. I can see the part about Bani Israel. I
من
can't.
على أن عبدت بني إسرائيل.
Oh, تلك نعمة تمنعها what is it?
تمنوا
تمنها علي أن
تمنوا.
عبدت بني إسرائيل. Oh, right, that they right, okay, the person is saying, is this not indication that the Israelites had been enslaved by the Pharaoh? Okay, that's
Yes.
interesting. I'll look into that. That's interesting.
Yeah, what exactly? Beautiful
That's a very
verse.
good.
I
I
never
appreciate.
paid attention to that
Neither
one.
neither did I, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think Rashid
It
Rayhan.
is 26, 22. Let me see.
Right. So
Chapter 26, I think Shura.
you will be much better versed at that, Professor,
Quran
knowing the numbers.
26,
But that
26,
is an
20.
interesting verse. You're right, because historically they seem to
وتلك
historians seem to suggest
نعمة.
historians seem to imply that not imply they seem to state that the Israelites weren't slaves generally speaking, but they were treated as second or third class citizens by the pharaohs, but they weren't actually slaves per se. They had their own settlement and they were becoming outcasted. So some of the Egyptians believed that maybe the famines were due to them and plague was brought by them and they were dirty people and brought germs and things like that. But you're right, that verse is interesting. I'll look into that personally. Right, somebody's asked, what do you think? Inaya has said, what do you think of Sam Gerrans or Sam Gerrans Quran alone?
Sam Gerrans, he's very articulate. He's very studious. I like that. And but his inability to see the miracle of number 19 is sad. He misses all the 29 initials. He makes up meaning for them arbitrarily, absolutely arbitrarily. Through his head, he brings out rabbits out, has no system,
Sorry,
no
what's he do?
objectivity.
For what? For number? Did you say for a number?
For the Elif Lam Mim Kaf Ha Ya Ain
Oh, right.
Sad,
Okay.
he makes up meaning arbitrarily in his own. It's basically there's no evidence. What is it? He makes up, but he ignores the number 19. Therefore, ignorance of number 19 in the Quran says, وما هي إلا ذكرى للبشر لمن شاء منكم أن يتقدم أو يتأخر لمن شاء منكم أن يتقدم أو يتأخر. This number 19 is to distinguish those who go forward or to stay backward. Therefore, it says the hypocrites and the kafirs, ingrates, will not witness it. They will say, what does God mean by this number? Therefore, this very number is a test, fitna. It is now, right now, a test. If you are not witnessing it, there is something wrong with you, my brother, my sister. Absolutely. But I want you to hold your judgment. Don't rush into judgment. Study this. This is God, like in the past, certain miracles shown to people, like Saleh's camel. Don't sacrifice it. There are signs. And some people say, oh, how can camel be miracle? Let me sacrifice it. It is a test. And this one is a really intellectual test. Your own bigotry and whatever in your heart, if you have that kind of things, you will not be able to see it. Therefore, I want you to don't rush into the judgment, whether it's true or not. Of course, you are not in the position that I am now because I witnessed it. I counted it and I know it is incredible. I cannot explain because إنها لأحد الكبر. This number 19 is one of the biggest signs. And therefore, his inability to see it, and I think is a major problem on his side. I wish that he didn't have that bigotry, but it is his own test. What can I say?
Okay. Right. Are there any final questions for Professor here? Let's see. People are posting a lot of comments. Somebody did, and some questions. I don't know whether they're really meaningful, but somebody had said, does the professor feel that owning a slave is shirk?
Of course.
So it's shirk.
Well,
okay.
You claim to be the Rabb of that person. You claim that he is my abd. That's simple. If you make someone your abd, you become a pharaoh. Sure. Cannot be clearer than that. In Arabic, it's called abd or Rabb. Slave is abd, and you become Rabb. You claim to become Rabb besides God. Arbaban ma'allah. It is rhetorical rejection of being any Rabb besides God. You say, no, Rabb, I am also another Rabb besides you. I am like Pharaoh, and Rabbukum al-A'la. Hello?
Sure. Somebody's asked here that what are your thoughts on the word Kawthar in the Quran? Inna a'taynak al-Kawthar. Is there some special understanding? I'm
No,
not sure.
it
No.
is made up. Kawthar comes from Kesir, means plurality. I give you plenty. It
Yeah.
is for you too, for me
Yeah.
too.
Sure.
It is general. They made it Aisha, Fatima, and stuff. It is all made up. Has
Sure.
nothing to do with it.
That makes. Salam. Opinion on Muhammad Sheikh, who is also Quran alone, and his idea on Al Kitab being the only and same book given to all prophets. Do you feel that? So there's a two-part question. I don't know if you're familiar with Muhammad Sheikh, and the other part is that the view that Al Kitab is the same prescription given to all prophets. Do you feel that's?
Al Kitab is the same book, yes, given to all prophets. Is God's book. It is in fact in singular form is used. It is means divine laws, but as far as the details in that one can change according to one ummah, one time to another time. But God sends book or law to each groups, and the Quran is the last testament.
Sure.
Old Testament, New Testament, and stuff. But all they have the same system. It is called Islam, means peacemaking. The goal of Islam is a secular goal, and Iman is different. Every mu'min, every person who trusts God alone, they are also peacemaker. They are Muslims. But every Muslim means peacemaker may not be necessarily be a rational monotheist, a mu'min. They could be mushrik. Therefore, that could be Christian Muslim, Christian peacemaker, Jewish peacemaker. In Medina, they were all peacemakers. It was a state of Islam.
So it's the ones who are making silm, who are creating, that's the verb in Arabic, Islam, is to
Salam.
actualize silm, salam. Right,
Exactly.
so, okay. A question here that does the professor, do you reject all books of hadith, or are there some that you will accept, like somebody has mentioned the Muwatta of Imam Malik? I take it that you reject all, isn't it?
I reject all hadiths, including my own hadiths, to be a source of system God. Only it is God's mukhlasina lahuddin ila hukmu illa lillah. Only the Quran. God doesn't listen. God doesn't have shortage of words. All the oceans, 7 oceans, become in ink, and all the forests, all the trees become. God words will not. Therefore, God has no shortage of words. God is not forgetful. The Quran is mufassal, is enough for us. The details, we don't need it. Again, you say, well, what about the prayers, the Quran?
Yeah, this is another question right here that somebody said, how do you determine the 5 prayers? I knew that question would come. That's a common question to people who reject hadith. How do you respond to that? Because you must get that a lot.
Yes, I have a short answer and a little bit longer answer. Which one should I give first?
Whichever one you're comfortable with.
The shorter answer first, and later if you needed it.
Sure.
If in order to pray according to your detailed description, according to Hadith book, according to the pray according to those books, if I need to associate partners to God, if I need to oppress women, if I need to prohibit many blessings of God that God does not prohibit, if I need to stone people to death, if I need to put a woman in a black sack, if I need to become ignorant person.
That's an interesting game.
Yes.
In a black
then
sack.
I don't want to pray that prayer. Then with that prayer, to hell that prayer. That prayer leads me to become evil. But the prayer, in fact, تنهى عن الفحشاء ينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر. The prayer must be making smarter if this pray. A person more righteous, better, treating people nicely, respecting women. But I see in order to me to pray according to these details, which is many details, contradictory details,
Of course, yeah.
if I need to follow these books, your prayer is for you. I don't pray. But according to the Quran, first of all, you start with bargain. You say, I already have the description of prayer, which is you are lying. You don't have really description. You have many lies fabricated about prayer and they are contradictory. And you say, find this one in the Quran. If you cannot find this fabricated hadith about prayer in the Quran, then the Quran is not detailed enough. Well, that's a circular argument. First, what is the prayer? You say, well, the prayer must have this many units. Who said that? Where do you get it? You get it from your fabricated hadith. And you say, I cannot find my fabricated hadith in the Quran, therefore Quran is not detailed. That is a false argument. Therefore, according to the Quran, the units of the prayer, no, it's not an issue. Like the color of heifer, in the beginning of chapter 2, God doesn't, just for fun, give you an example of Jewish rabbis creating frivolous details. What God told them? God told them to sacrifice a heifer. There was a purpose, because heifer was a symbol of their oppressors, the masters, the pharaohs. And they still had, in their mind, they still have connection.
That is very interesting. That on a
Oh
side
yes,
note. Wow.
Osiris. It was not a stupid ritual. It was not because they needed blood and stuff. Because Osiris, the pharaohs, they had heifer, and when they were slaves, they were also under the influence of the culture and religion. They adopted the religion of their masters. Like black people brought to United States as slaves, they became Christians. They adopted the religion of their master the same way. And when they were freed by Moses, but in their mind they still had some respect to that heifer.
Yeah.
And therefore the Samarite was able to.
You see, because I've also said that Uzair in the Quran was Osiris. I don't know if that resonates with you, but where it said about the Jewish people that they said Uzairun ibn Allah, that this was in the subconscious, it was Osiris, Usair bil Arabiya.
I don't know about that. I haven't thought about that. But this is the heifer, and God wants them to really physically cut it by this way. You know, in psychology, there is this kind of treatment. If you have certain obsession or fear, phobia, you go do something physically in order to mentally also cut yourself. Exactly. This was to really do not have any respect for these things. But rabbi changed you entirely through frivolous question. What is the color? And whether it is young or old, whether it is in the barn or in the farm, this kind of stupid question. And the Quran says almost, and each time the details is given, they want more detail. This is the mentality of clergyman, rabbi. They create frivolous questions. Through frivolous question, they create volumes of books. And so what happens? Normal people will not be able to know.
That is such a gem, though. The fact that you see what Allah was instructing them to to completely jettison this subconscious baggage of Osiris and the pharaohs with this heifer and with this kind of calf, this young cow, and rather what they come up with is, ma lonuha, what's its color, should it be this, should it be that?
Trivialized. They trivialized, distorted, distracted from the main point, basically. They missed the entire point. And the same with the prayer. This salat. Salat means, my brother, salat, in fact, the Quran defines what does salat mean. وَمَا صَدَّقَ وَمَا صَلَّى وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبَ وَتَوَلَّى. وَمَا صَدَّقَ وَمَا صَلَّى, did not approve it and did not salla. Let's keep it salla. وَلَكِنْ كَذَّبَ, it is the antonym of صَدَقَ, and therefore وَتَوَلَّى,
to turn away.
And turned away. Therefore, then salat should be the antonym, the opposite of turning away means turning face, showing empathy and interest, being in solidarity. And we see it in, for example, إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. God and his angels, controllers, angels is another misunderstood. God and his controllers are supporting the messenger, means in solidarity with messenger. O people, you also support the messenger, be in solidarity with messenger. In another verse is Nabi, I'm sorry. In another verse, هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور. God and his angels are supporting you in order to take you from darkness to light, enlightenment. You see, that means Salli ala is also God is doing to Mu'min, not only Muhammad, only Mu'min, also Mu'mins. In another verse, tell Muhammad, Salli خذ من أموالهم صدقة تزكيهم بها وصلي عليهم إن صلاتك سكن لهم. Tells Muhammad, say, take some zakat, purification from their earning, distribute to the needy, and do salat to them, support them, be in solidarity with them, because your support is second, make them calm, make them better. Correct? Yeah. Therefore, here we see solidarity in three ways: between God and believers, between God and messenger, and between messenger and other believers, and believers to messenger. And therefore, we need to be in solidarity. It has two ways. One, solidarity with God. It is in the domain of faith, iman. A mu'min must be in connection with God, in solidarity with God, ask support from God, and give promise to God that he or she will support God's way. In the cause of God means God's attributes.
So it doesn't mean necessarily the ritual prayer.
No. And okay. The other one is being solidarity with people, salat with people, and that is Salat al-Jum'ah. It is secular. You go to Salat, solidarity with people, once in a while in the neighborhood or in the city. You are invited to come as people, be in solidarity psychologically, socially, politically, financially. Be in solidarity. A Salat with God, I do think it is prayer, zikrullah, to commemorate God and ask help from God. And meanwhile, ruku and sujud possible. It could be physical, but it is like not the essence of it. Yeah, it is not the essence of it. It is not the essence. The essence is zikr, because the only time God says do not do salat when you don't know what you are saying, means mental connection with God. It is for mu'min. As for Muslim, all the Muslims need to do salat. All the Muslims means peacemakers in a city or in a town. It is their civic duty when they are invited to Salat al-Jum'ah, to communal mass solidarity, they need to go there to be support.
Somebody has mentioned the verse ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من اتقى. Yeah, so okay, yeah, I guess that's in line with what's being said here. Okay, so right, wow, so there's just seeing people are just they're just saying the same thing. Right, I'm against the physical exercise aspect of salah, somebody has mentioned. Okay, that's
I'm not against that. I don't think it is the essence of it, but if someone is while doing that is ruku and sujud, means mentally to obey God, but physically we do. You say hi to someone, you smile your face, or you extend your hand. It is with our body to also affirm it. There's nothing wrong with that.
What you're saying is the physical side is an expression of what is really exactly what is at the heart of it, which is the connection with God. You're not against the physical salah. You're not dismissing the physical salah.
No.
So
but
just to
while
be
you
clear
are driving
for
the
people,
car, while you are driving the car, Quran says rukbanan, for example. While you are driving the camel or the car or your aeroplane, You can be sitting and still doing salat, connection with God, solidarity with God. Absolutely. You may not have water to do ablution before. Of course, it says you can do it by just imagining that you are purifying yourself. And you can do it short, let's say in the wartime. But the only time you're not supposed to do, these are not necessary component of salat. The Quran clearly says the only necessary component of salat is consciously, intellectually connecting to God. If you are drunk, says, do not go close to salat because you cannot do it. The only condition is to remember God, commemoration of God as a believer, be in solidarity. It is really
to kind of connect.
self-reflection about your position as a human being. We are in this world for a short time. We are going back to our Lord. Therefore, putting everything in position. We can get very angry, we can very greedy, we can very kind of depressed.
What
say,
people
well,
also sometimes call mindfulness, having that with
beautiful.
God, though. Yeah.
Exactly.
Go on then, Professor. Now give us
That's
now give us the lengthy response.
The later response.
No, I'm joking.
I almost gave it.
I'm
that
joking.
was the later response.
Right. So you know what, Professor, it's been absolutely an absolute pleasure. You are, if people want to reach out to you, they want to connect with you, what is the best way that where people can find you, Professor? You've got your website, which I did show that previously. It's 19.org, where there's a lot about your amazing works on there. But what is another way for people to connect with you?
Let's do Zoom. In fact, I want to do. There is way. I don't want to give away my phone number. Many people.
No! Don't give your phone number. Absolutely not.
I have my email address, but I suggest you.
Yeah.
Let's have conferences. I would love to have a conference panel that we do that, and we come together with our Sunni and Shiite brothers too, or atheists. I have no animosity to Sunnis or Shiites because of their religion. Absolutely not.
No, of course not. And just to say, I've spoken on a few occasions with you already prior to this, and some lengthy discussions. Very loving, amazing. There's none of this, because let's say you don't follow exactly what the other person follows, some hostility. It's nothing like that.
We discussed the issues. I discussed too. I don't even care about my father, about myself too. I rejected some of my previous things. But when it comes to discussion, I am very debate. I don't have mercy because it is matter to find the truth. But in terms of person, absolutely. Even if my biggest opponent, the most opponent over there, if he's unjustly treated, I will defend that person's right. And because I want to live in peace with everyone. But while we are in peace, we can discuss with passion whatever we want, no problem. As long as we don't threaten each other, we don't kill each other, we don't unjustly, falsely accuse each other, absolutely. Therefore, we want to live in peace with everyone. And I believe that all children of Adam, we are all Homo sapiens, we are brothers.
We can learn from our cousins, the bonobo apes, who make love, not war.
MashaAllah. Okay, let's do that one. And also, I invite you to listen to my speech at British Parliament. It is a very important speech.
It's on YouTube, isn't it?
1.5 hours. There is also my speech at the European Parliament. It is also a very good one. These are political and ethical issues. And also I have about a good interview with Rudaw, a Kurdish TV in Washington on ISIS. ISIS is Sunni, basically. They applied Sunni. Edip Yuksel, ISIS, if you write in YouTube, you will find
you've got it. Professor has a lot of videos and a lot of writings completely refuting the belief structure and everything of ISIS or extremist ideologies, don't you? So you're on Zoom, and to look out for your videos on YouTube. Are you on any other social media accounts like Facebook and things like this?
I have Facebook, but I'm not as active I used to be. I was on Twitter. I had a very great impact, 150,000, but the reach was much more than 150,000
Wow.
followers.
You're
But they
doing it.
banned it. They suspended me because of Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish government.
Wow. Okay.
In cahoot with the Twitter, they suspended me. I'm considering to file a lawsuit against Twitter for this one.
Okay.
I have little chance in one way because American Constitution unfortunately doesn't protect against big corporation
Okay.
regarding freedom of expression. It protects against government. I can sue the government if government censored me, but somehow, according to the First Amendment law, I cannot claim right against a corporation. This is
Yeah.
a biggest deficiency
Because
of
in
American
essence, it's a
Constitution.
company, and a company has the right to, management reserves. In
I think
essence,
it is
yeah.
wrong. I think it is wrong because the public square in the past was governed by government, but public square switched with the social media and internet, switched from 3D real public square to virtual public square on
I,
social media. Right now, it is monopolized public square by these two companies.
but
Therefore, they are acting like a government.
I agree with you that it's a fascinating discussion that these public spaces, which in essence are commercial properties, but because it's a company, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, but because they've become an entity of public space, should they still? I mean, shouldn't there be a
They
discussion
should be
of
responsible. They
exactly?
should not
Shouldn't
be
they?
just censor people haphazardly because they control the expression of ideas, basically the public square. Therefore, for the society, it is a danger. If just few corporations they censor, they can block anyone they want. It is absolutely wrong, and we
Sure.
should have laws against that. We should regulate them.
Uh,
They should follow due process. They cannot just randomly, recklessly stop someone. They didn't even provide me with reason why which tweet they found against their rules. And besides the contract, I will have a lawsuit differently. I will not use the First Amendment right because I will lose. But I have, I think, a beautiful argument, and I will bring it in the American court
wow.
against Twitter. I have a wonderful argument. I think I am going to win. In fact, I will win some money too because I will punitive damages. Yeah, I may be rich for that.
Let's celebrate once you do. Before we go, just I know this has been a very extended session, and I know you must be very tired as well, Professor. So just shortly, your piece on because this just occurred to me. I want to ask before your piece on Berkeley and Descartes, the two angles of a triangle. What was the gist of your paper there?
Well, there are several. The idea of who we are, whether we are matter alone,
Yeah.
body, or mind, or body plus mind. Body plus mind is called dualism, which is associated with Descartes because
Descartes. Yeah.
he was the one most focused on the subject. Berkeley believed that everything, the essence, is the spirit, the soul, the idea.
Yeah. The idea, idealism.
Because
Yeah.
what happens all in our mind and the rest of it. And some materialists believe that no, the spirit, the soul, doesn't exist as independent entity. It is the function of the brain. The brain is material things.
Yeah.
Basically, one is matter, is the essence. The other, nope, the spirit, the soul is the essence. And of course, the third way is both of them are essence, both need in order for a human being to exist. And of course, the problem is if this is a different essence and soul is metaphysical, is not physical, how they communicate with each other. The soul is not material, it is not governed by the laws of the universe that we are in, and matter, they
Because
will not work. Therefore,
I synonymize soul with consciousness personally.
Yeah,
I mean that.
beautiful, but it is
Yeah.
more than that. It is very interesting subject, and in fact, the idea is says the matter, that everything is matter, says human being is an MP3 player. Everything is confined with the body, and the one says nope, human being is idea, says the human is broadcasting, is radio broadcast. The one says both, the human is a radio that a broadcast soul come into it,
Yeah.
but broadcast independently exists,
Yeah.
and the matter independently exists. Basically, it is like a radio device.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
which one do you think? Do you think you are?
I've actually said that I believe in non-local consciousness, and that is the ruh, and we kind of, the brain is like the radio transmitter that picks up the signal, or it is like the phone that is picking up the Wi-Fi. That's what I've kind of said previously.
I disagree with that. I disagree that it is something like that, because it doesn't really have any meaning when you say um, something in essence differently. Uh, what what I think that it is information plus matter. The order of matter is both independent existence from matter, both dependent at the same time. Like let's say human, take humans apart to its ingredients, and then my ingredients and your ingredients, it will be several pounds of carbon, several pounds of or say kilogram. I am more than kilogram. Therefore, several kilogram of carbon and oxygen and hydrogen and nitrogen and other elements. Correct?
Yeah.
This is basically human. Put it on a table. These pounds of or kilograms of elements, they will not make a human being.
No,
But
of course, yeah.
bring them together, create some molecules, and somehow they start behaving differently, these atoms.
Yeah.
And these molecules come together, make a chain of molecules like genetic code, and then they will start and then create organs, and then these organs.
Like the principle in Gestaltian psychology that the sum is
Yeah.
greater than the whole. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Beautiful. Information enters. There is certain information, means the order of atoms, and then make molecules, and the way the proportion and the order of molecules, and then the proportion and the order of package of molecules, and create organs and humans. Therefore, human is ingredients, which is atoms, plus the order, which is information. That information is different, separate. Like a computer is material thing. Computer, there is a steel in it, silicon in it, and some plastic and stuff. This is the hardware of the computer, like human body. And human computer's brain is the logic board and the circuits inside. But the software or the system program is the knowledge that from a human being is uploaded, is blown into the computer, like nafs or ruh into it. And this can be separate from the computer. For example, this computer body dies, the information inside the computer, the programs and the application programs, and the later data is created.
Live on like they do in the cloud.
Could be uploaded in the cloud, in the Kitab. They are always backed up in Kitab. And then one day, if this body dies, it is there, waiting there in deposit in God's Kitab. And then God will create another body. وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ, when the personality, consciousness is matched with a body, that time another creation in another universe.
Wow.
Therefore, our person is the information that makes our genetic makeup, and plus the applications and the data and the things we gathered, habits, ideas, convictions, and sins. These are the things that make our person, our nafs. And our nafs is every time is backed up in God's Kitab, and then one day will come, this body will die, but we are there, and we are dead because we are not conscious. In order to consciousness happen, it needs to be actively applied to
To a
another
new
body.
body.
Beautiful.
Wow, that is amazing. People, and Professor has been a professor for many years in philosophy, so do check out some of his discourses. You know where to find him. The website 19.org. If you haven't already liked my pages, then shame on you. That's all I can say. But other than
Okay.
that, I want to thank you, Professor Edip, for taking out the time today. It's been
I
an
want to
absolute pleasure.
introduce my monkey here.
Okay.
This is my eraser.
Wow. Okay.
This is I use it for whiteboard here as an
Okay.
eraser.
Okay,
It's a good
that's-
one.
that's
Okay,
amazing.
here is the monkey here. Thank you very much for your patience.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome.
So people, shukran for hacking it out. It's been a lengthy session, but one that's been incredibly well worth it. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, we have the man, the myth, the legend, Professor Edip here. So with that, over and out. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.